Chapter 669. Although Danzo had lost both his eyes and his vision, he still had the ability to sense chakra. When he felt the intense chakra wave from the truth-seeking ball, he immediately understood that Hyojin would not let him go. So he said, "This old man has always thought that the Hyuga clan is just a bunch of useless watchdogs. I didn't expect to see a monster like you. You obviously have such powerful strength, but you can still maintain the vigilance of a ninja and restrain the arrogance in your heart. Hyojin, this old man lost to you, and it's not an injustice." After a pause, the corner of Danzo's mouth cracked open, and he roared, "But this old man is Danzo, my's Naruto. Even if I have to die, I will drag you down with me, you damn bastard." After roaring, the blood on Danzo's body spurted out like ink. The blood ink condensed into a sealing technique in the air, emitting a deathly aura. In her four-symbol seal, Hyojin's expression did not change. He gently waved his left hand, and several truth-seeking balls around him flew out like arrows, quickly hitting Danzo, who was about to activate the inner four-symbol seal. Bang, bang. With two muffled sounds, Danzo's whole body was hit like a rag, and the place that was hit by the truth-seeking ball was completely pierced, and the surrounding flesh and blood disappeared without a trace. There was no doubt that after losing the Man-GQ Sharingan in his eye socket, the omniscient force in Danzo's body was greatly weakened, and he could no longer resist the decomposition of the truth-seeking ball like before. Cough, cough. Falling to the ground, Danzo, who was interrupted, coughed out a big mouthful of blood. Hyojin's eyes slightly narrowed. Danzo's life force had far exceeded his expectations. It was evident that the bloodline fusion ritual had indeed changed Danzo's body and slightly raised Danzo's level of existence. At this time, Danzo, who was lying on the ground, said, "Hyojin, do you think that by killing this old man, no one will know your secret? I'm sure you know about the impure earth reincarnation technique that second-generation Aiden developed, right? This old man knows so many secrets. In the future, there will definitely be people who will try to use the impure earth reincarnation on me. At that time, you and your God's organization will be exposed to everyone." Hyojin said nothing, his face full of disdain and pity. The blind Danzo thought that he had scared Hyojin, so he hurriedly said, "I can keep your secret for you, as long as you are willing to let me go. You and your God's organization can continue to hide in the village and do whatever you want." Hyojin curled his lips. "In any case, you have been the representative of Naruto. Why do you have to embarrass yourself like this?" Danzo coughed up blood as he shouted, "I can't die. The village still needs me to revitalize it. How can I die in such a place?" "As long as you lie to yourself like this, you can order others to die with a peace of mind." Chuckling, Tenseigan continued, "During the Kyuubi rebellion, you, as the consulting elder, disappeared without a trace. And when the Akatsuki attacked the village last time, you did nothing and just watched the village collapse. Don't talk about being the consulting elder. You haven't even fulfilled your duty as a my ninja. How can you talk about revitalizing the village? This kind of self-deception is too laughable." Danzo still wanted to say, "If you want to keep the secret of your God's organization, you can't kill." Before Danzo could finish, several truth-seeking balls gathered together and turned into a huge sphere. Then it covered Danzo from top to bottom, disintegrating him along with the ground beneath him. Following the final blow from the truth-seeking ball, Danzo's threatening shout came to an abrupt end. "TSK, even in death, you don't forget to disgust others." Letting out a light sigh, Tenseigan released all the truth-seeking balls. He didn't care about Danzo's last threat at all. After all, the truth-seeking ball did not only disintegrate the physical body. Even the incorporeal spiritual body could not resist the disintegration of the truth-seeking ball. In the original space and time, the 4 generations Naruto of the impure earth form had both his arms completely destroyed by the truth-seeking ball. Even the infinite regenerative impure earth reincarnation technique was useless. The reason was because the truth-seeking ball destroyed the spiritual body of the 4 generations Naruto of the impure earth form, causing the impure earth reincarnation technique to fail. In other words, even the impure earth reincarnation technique, a forbidden technique that could distort the boundary between life and death, could not summon the spiritual body of a person who was disintegrated by the truth-seeking ball. This was because Danzo's spiritual body had been completely annihilated along with his body. Using the Tenseigan to scan the surroundings one last time, and after confirming that he didn't miss anything, Suijin took the fire clone lying on the ground, and with a flicker of his figure, he left the shattered Taberto Island. Arriving at a reef not far from Torshadow Island, Hyojin ordered the 4 generations Mizuki Jigura, who was guarding the reef alone, immediately arrange some people to chase after Danzo in the southwest direction, create the illusion that Danzo escaped to the desert of the Wind Nation. Yes, I'll arrange it right away. Yagura nodded respectfully. Rumble. At this moment, Naidu Island in the distance was completely shattered by a huge wave. It fell into the raging sea in pieces, as if it had never existed. The traces of the Susanoo battle, the wood release ninjutsu, the crystal release ninjutsu, and so on also sank into the vast sea together with the island. Boom! Amidst the lightning and thunder, Mei and the others were rushing in the direction of Torshadow Island in the heavy rain. At this moment, all of their hearts were in their throats. When they thought of the shocking achievements of Danzo and the information that was just sent back to the village, they couldn't help but worry about the safety of the 4 generations Mizuki. Looking at the gloomy gray sky in front of them, Mei secretly vowed in her heart, I will never let the village repeat the same mistake and become a plaything in the palm of others again. After a long time, the group finally arrived near Torshadow Island. However, looking at the endless sea in front of them, everyone was stunned. Many of them had been to Torshadow Island, so they were sure that they didn't go in the wrong direction, but the huge Torshadow Island had disappeared. At this moment, the 4 generations Mizuki Jigura appeared from the sea and said to the people of the Mist Village, There's no need to look, Torshadow Island has sunk. Mei hurriedly asked, 4 generations, are you okay? Yagura shook his head and said, Danzo wanted to plot against me, but I saw through it. We had a big fight, and he couldn't win, so he fled southwest. Now everyone listen to my command. Follow me and chase after Danzo. Mei turned her head and glanced at Aoi. Aoi nodded at Mei, hinting that Mizuki was not under the control of the illusion. Mei heaved a sigh of relief, and immediately followed the Mist Village in the rain to chase southwest second night. Chapter 670. Inside the Sky Fortress. After throwing the fire clone into the large nutrition tank, Hyojin checked the physical signs of the fire clone with an instrument and found that many of the meridians in the fire clone's body have been damaged, and the injury is much more serious than he imagined. Is it because of the nether release? While looking at the physical signs of the fire clone detected by the instrument, Hyojin analyzed the cause of the injury in his heart. In the previous fierce battles, because of the protection of Susanoo, the fire release clone did not suffer any damage. So what caused the fire release clone to be damaged was the last stage when it was captured by Danzo and absorbed the pupil power. Hyojin doesn't know much about the nether release. However, as long as he thinks about it a little, he can guess that when the nether release extracts the enemy's chakra, it will not be gentle, and the whole extraction process will be destructive. It seems that this fire clone will also need some time to slowly recover. Hyojin shook his head and sighed lightly. At this moment, of the 6 large nutrition tanks in front of him, specially prepared for the 6 chakra clones, 3 of them are already being repaired. Needless to say, the wind clone is already an old resident of the large nutrition tank, and in the foreseeable future, it will probably spend most of its time in the large nutrition tank. The earth clone number 2 that was damaged not long ago is also soaking in the large nutrition tank at this moment. The consequences of using the dust release rashly without fully mastering it are now completely revealed. How long will it take for the earth clone number 2 to completely recover? Even Hyojin can't judge for a while. counting the fire clone that has just been thrown into the large nutrition tank and is soaking side by side with the wind clone and the earth clone number 2, it can be said that Hyojin can only use his Een release and water clone at the moment. Fortunately, the matter with the Danzo has been resolved satisfactorily, and his pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan has also been successfully recovered. Compared with this result, the damage to the fire release clone is not worth mentioning. Thinking of this, Hyojin took out the storage scroll with the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan sealed in it from the ninja bag hanging on his waist. After unlocking the seal through the glass wall of the small nutrition tank, Hyojin opened his Tenseigan and carefully observed the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan soaking in the small nutrition tank. The interruption of the evolution this time is very damaging to the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Not to mention the consumption of a large amount of pupil power. Even the power of the world of nature used to attack the Rinnegan has been consumed in vain. At this time, it has completely lost the monster feeling it had before. Even the living characteristic has weakened a lot, as if it has become an ordinary Samagatama Sharingan. How can I help it recover its eye power? Rubbing his chin, Hyojin fell into deep thought. The biggest difference between the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and the Manjikyu Sharingan is that no matter how much pupil power is consumed in the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it can slowly recover over time. As long as the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is not seriously damaged, it will never lose its sight. But there's also a prerequisite. That is, the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan needs a suitable host to act as the provider of the chakra to restore the pupil power. Soaking the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the nutrient tank alone will not help it recover. After thinking about it for a while, Hyojin took out his water clone and transplanted the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into the eye sockets of the water clone. Then, he used the soul descent technique to enter the body of the water clone. In an instant, a heavy trance filled Kuroto's mind, causing him to stagger and fall directly from the operating table, unable to recover for a long time. After a long time, Kuroto leaned on the operating table, gasping for breath, and muttered, "Damn it, I didn't expect the rejection to be so strong. It seems that the water clone is not compatible with this pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan." Once again, it has been proven that without the blood of Uchiha, without the special body of Senju and Uzumaki clan, it would be very difficult to control the Manjikyu Sharingan. After the spirit body returned to the main body, Hyojin didn't delay and immediately removed the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from the eye sockets of the water clone. Implanting the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into a body that is not compatible with the water clone is a heavy burden, whether it is for the Sharingan or the body, and over time, it will cause damage to both sides. It seems that I can only let Xiang Lin do it. Although there are many people under Hyojin who are qualified to nourish the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but the most suitable one is Xiang Lin, who has the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan. It must be known that Nagato, who also has the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan, was secretly transplanted with the Rinnegan by Madara Uchiha when he was a child. Xiang Lin's talent is actually not much worse than the Nagato of the same clan. Her innate healing talent is actually a direct manifestation of the high-intensity yang release chakra in her body. It can be said that even among the Uzumaki clan, Xiang Lin's talent is outstanding, and she belongs to the best of the Uzumaki clan. In the original time and space, she almost did not receive any formal ninja education during her childhood, not to mention the cultivation of the Uzumaki clan. After being incorporated by Orochimaru, she was only treated as a tool by Orochimaru, and he did not guide her carefully. But even so, she still comprehended the secret techniques of the Uzumaki clan, including Kagura Mind Eye and Diamond Lock, with her own talent, which shows how exaggerated her talent is. That's right, let her adapt to the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan first and prepare for the Rinnegan transplant in the future. Hyojin was also prepared to use Xiang Lin as his last insurance, so he implanted the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in her eye socket in advance. It can be said to kill two birds with one stone. Not only can he use Xiang Lin's physique to restore the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil power, but also let Xiang Lin adapt to the feeling of a pupil technique ninja in advance and prepare for the Rinnegan transplant in the future. According to his experience, Hyojin feels that the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan on the Fire Release clone will recover to its peak state in 3 to 4 months at most. Although the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his hands is slightly damaged, it will take at most half a year to recover. In other words, even if the fusion period of the Rinnegan is counted, it will take at most 8 or 9 months for Hyojin to obtain a pair of Rinnegan. So it is indeed necessary to plan in advance. First update. Chapter 671. Wow, this hole is bigger than I thought. I really don't know how Sama made it. Holding the edge of the broken dome of the Sky Fortress, Xiang Lin looked around curiously and exclaimed. Down below, Gaara had a helpless look on his face. I heard from the instructor that it was caused by an accident when Sama was training. Well, come down quickly. It's very dangerous up there. The instructor in Gaara's mouth is the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets who are responsible for taking care of their daily lives and supervising their daily training. Humph! I haven't seen it clearly yet. After a pause, Xiang Lin waved to Gaara below. Hurry up, go up a little bit. I still want to see outside the dome. Gaara had no choice but to lift up his hands and control the sand carpet, holding Xiang Lin to move up another half a meter, faintly lifting Xiang Lin out of the hole in the dome. Who allowed the 2 of you to come here? Suddenly, a cold voice came from the Sky Fortress. Gaara was taken aback. He didn't sense someone approaching at all, so his hands that were controlling the sand trembled slightly, causing the sand carpet holding Xiang Lin to tilt. As the sand carpet tilted, Xiang Lin, who was stretching her neck to look outside, immediately fell down with a cry of alarm. Gaara's expression froze. Oh no! Just as Gaara was about to control the sand carpet to catch Xiang Lin falling, a figure flashed silently in front of his eyes, and before the sand carpet arrived, the figure grabbed Xiang Lin and firmly lifted her in his hand. Gaara hurriedly greeted the figure and bowed deeply to the figure. My lord. Obviously, the person who grabbed Xiang Lin in his hand is none other than Hyojin, who is preparing to transplant the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into Xiang Lin. Putting Xiang Lin on the ground, Hyojin glanced at the 2 of them and said, Didn't I tell you not to approach this area until the repair is completed? Gaara lowered his head, not daring to look at Hyojin's eyes. Xiang Lin spat out her tongue. My lord, please don't blame Gaara. I was curious and dragged him here. Hyojin snorted lightly. It seems that I underestimated the 2 of you. The training tasks assigned to you are too few. I didn't expect you to have the leisure to be curious about other things. Listening to Hyojin's words, Gaara and Xiang Lin had a bad feeling and looked at each other bitterly. Hyojin said coldly, From today onwards, the daily training tasks will be doubled. I will let the instructor supervise the whole process. If the 2 of you can't finish it, you are not allowed to sleep. The daily training tasks assigned by Hyojin for Gaara and Xiang Lin are actually not few. Compared to other children of the same age, such as Hyojin Shinobi, Gaara and Xiang's training can be called heavy. It's just that these 2 children are talented. Once they get used to the daily training, they gradually don't feel that it's hard. In addition, both of them are at the age where curiosity is the strongest. So after completing today's training tasks under the supervision of the instructor, the Kazekage puppets of the 3 generations, they secretly ran to the damaged part of the Sky Fortress. As soon as they heard that the daily training workload will be doubled, Gaara and Xiang Lin immediately cried and replied weakly, Yes. Xiang Lin, come with me. With that, Hyojin walked toward the laboratory. After making a face at Gaara, Xiang Lin trotted to catch up with Sui Jin and asked curiously, Sama, where are you taking me? Hyojin glanced at Xiang Lin, his eyes focused on the black-rimmed glasses on Xiang Lin's face, and asked, Are these glasses good? Xiang Lin hurriedly nodded. After wearing the glasses you gave me, I can see much better. The black-rimmed glasses that Xiang Lin was wearing at this time were bought by Hyojin on the road when he took her away from the Kasinabu village. Xiang Lin is almost impeccable in all aspects. If you have to find a flaw in her, it would be that her eyes are not very good. there's a certain degree of vision defect. The reason for this, Hyojin feels that it is mostly because of the serious lack of nutrition when her body is developing, which has affected the development of her eyes. Hyojin asked, I have a pair of very good eyes here. Do you want them? Xianglin was puzzled. But I already have eyes? Hyojin smiled. I can change a pair of eyes through surgery, so you don't have to wear glasses every day. Xianglin was a little moved. Really? Hyojin nodded lightly. Xianglin quickly asked, Then what kind of eyes do you want to change for me? Hyojin didn't say anything more, directly led Xianglin to the laboratory, and then handed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan stored in a small nutrition tank to Xianglin's hand. Looking at the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan soaked in the nutrient solution, Xianglin became more and more curious. Sun-sama, why are these eyes red? Hyojin explained, They are called eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, a rare treasure in the shinobi world. Even if ordinary people get their hands on them, they won't be able to control them. And those who have the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan happen to have the ability to control them. So I will now give the decision to you. Whether you want to change the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan or not, it is up to you. Giving the decision to Xianglin is Hyojin's decision from the beginning. He can indeed order Xianglin to transplant the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but it doesn't make sense to do so. If Xianglin is not willing, then in the future, transplanting the Rinnegan will not only not be a life-saving measure, but will also become a hidden danger. Uchiha Madara is the best negative example. He thinks he can control everything, but Nagato and Obsidian, who he regarded as chess pieces, have betrayed him one after another, making all the arrangements he left for his resurrection before his death become ridiculous and useless. Therefore, on this issue, Hyojin will not force Xianglin. Everything is up to Xianglin. Okay. However, to Hyojin's surprise, Xianglin agreed without thinking about it. Hyojin frowned. Don't you want to think about it? Xianglin smiled and said, You brought me here because you want me to transplant these eyes, so there is no need to think about it. I will listen to your arrangement. Taking a deep look at Xianglin, Hyojin didn't say anything more and immediately began the operation. For today's Hyojin, such a small operation is not difficult at all, so it only took him a short quarter of an hour to successfully transplant the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into Xianglin's eye socket. After completing the operation, Hyojin observed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Xianglin's eye socket and asked, How do you feel? After a while, Xianglin suddenly exclaimed, Wow, I can see it so clearly. Hyojin threw Xianglin's black-rimmed glasses into the trash can and said with a smile, It seems that I won't need it in the future. Xianglin hurriedly ran to the trash can to pick up her glasses and carefully wiped them. Hyojin asked, Why did you pick it up? Xianglin smiled brightly at Hyojin, Because this is the first gift you gave me. Second watch. Chapter 672. Looking at the clean and bright smile on Xianglin's face, Hyojin shook his head and said, It's just a pair of glasses. Xianglin smiled and didn't speak, but carefully put the black-rimmed glasses into his pocket. Xianglin, who witnessed the tragic death of her mother, and Mira, who became a pillar of strength and was hated by everyone around him, are different from ordinary children. Their childhood was filled with endless darkness and tragedy. Hyojin's care for them is very ordinary in Hyojin's eyes, but in their eyes, it is extremely precious, because it is the appearance of Hyojin that fills the most missing part in their hearts. Not continuing to talk about the glasses, Hyojin packed up the surgical equipment and said, If there is any discomfort with these eyes, you must tell me in time. Compatibility is a very mysterious thing. Even if Xianglin has the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan, there is still the possibility of rejection with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Xianglin nodded, then bounced to a mirror, looked at it, and exclaimed, My lord, why did my eyes turn black again? Hyojin explained, The Sharingan will only turn red when it is activated. This pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is in a state of exhaustion, so after being transplanted into Xianglin's eye sockets, it automatically fell into dormancy. This is somewhat similar to the situation of Nagato transplanting the Rinnegan. But the Rinnegan transplanted to Nagato by Uchimadara is actively dormant to reduce the burden on the young body of Nagato, while this pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is passively dormant. Xianglin asked curiously, Sama, how do I activate it? Hyojin shook his head. This pair of Sharingan is currently in a state of exhaustion due to some other reasons. It needs to be nourished for a period of time. So during this time, you should not deliberately activate it, stimulate it. Oh, seeing that Xianglin was a little disappointed, Hyojin smiled and said, Don't worry. I'll guide you on how to use it when it's almost recovered. But before that, you can't slack off for even a moment. For a ninja, their own chakra's amount and chakra controllability are two major factors that determine the upper limit of their strength. Your chakra's amount is already very good. So as long as you work hard on chakra control, your future achievements will be limitless. Xianglin nodded, not fully understanding. Yes, I will work hard. After exhorting Xianglin to pay attention to some matters, Hyojin sent Xianglin away. Ga. After a while, the cawing of a crow suddenly came from outside the laboratory. Walking out of the laboratory, Hyojin saw a communication crow landing outside the laboratory. He immediately took out a communication scroll from the crow's leggings. Opening it, his face sank. This communication crow was sent by 4 generations Mizuki Yagura. In the communication scroll, Yagura briefly talked about how he used his water clone to play the role of Danzo to create traces along the way, and how he led the mist elites to pursue Danzo into the vast desert of the Land of Wind. It also mentioned that Mai and the Sand Crypsis discovered their pursuit of Danzo and sent people to follow them. These were not the reasons that made Hyojin's face sink. What made Hyojin's face sink was the series of achievements of Danzo sweeping the Akatsuki organization, the Grass Village, and the Cloud Village. Curling his lips, Hyojin muttered, No wonder Danzo boasted that he defeated Nagato. It turns out that he really fought with Nagato, and even took advantage of him. 6 Paths of Pain is actually a part of Nagato. It's an extension of Nagato's will. It's just like Hyojin when he controls all kinds of doppelgangers. If Danzo defeated 6 Paths of Pain head-on, then his bragging about defeating Nagato is actually not bragging. But Hyojin is very clear that if Danzo met Nagato's true body, the result would be instant death. Because in the current shinobi world, except for the Sage of 6 Paths, no one can withstand the full strength of Nagato's true body, Chibaku Tenseigan. Without the help of the giant Tenseigan on the moon, even if Hyojin has entered the Tenseigan chakra mode, he would be no exception. Once he meets Danzo, he would be instantly killed without any room for maneuver. Rubbing his chin, Hyojin thought to himself, I didn't expect that the Akatsuki organization would also join the encirclement of Danzo. Fortunately, Danzo fell into the trap and fell into my hands. Otherwise, the consequences would be really unpredictable. While rejoicing, Hyojin was also a little worried. The Akatsuki organization, which has been dormant since the last battle with Mai, unexpectedly became active again because of Danzo, which is obviously not a good thing for Hyojin. In a land of hot water, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh with the sound of breaking wind, a figure wearing the Akatsuki red cloud suit landed beside Nagato, who was standing on the beach. Nagato, who was looking at the sea, asked lightly, Did you investigate clearly? Shinichi stood up and replied, The traces of going to the land of the moon are fake. Danzo is not there. On the other side, Bippa Juzo also stood up and said, The traces of going south to Mai should also be fake. We have been tracking them all the way, but we didn't see any trace of Danzo. At this time, Konan landed from the sky and shook her head towards Nagato, indicating that there was no trace of Danzo in the land of hot water either. Staring at the sea, Nagato said, He crossed the land of long, land of iron, land of field, and land of hot water, all the way to the east. His destination is definitely not the nearby countries. Konan frowned. He wants to go to the land of water across the sea. Nagato gently nodded. The land of water is relatively isolated. It is a good place for him to hide. When the other Akatsuki members heard this, they also felt that it makes sense. There are a lot of uninhabited islands around the land of water. Danzo just needs to find a place to hide. It would be very difficult for others to find him. Just when Nagato was about to lead his people to the land of water to search for traces of Danzo, Zetsu suddenly poked half of his body out of the ground and reported to Nagato, "Nagato, we have a major discovery. It is about Amatsukami. We have found the true identity of one of their members." What? All the Akatsuki members present were surprised after hearing this. Even Nagato, who has always been indifferent, was no exception. Zetsu continued, "Not long ago, we encountered a new member of Amatsukami codenamed Xidagarba. Although we couldn't catch him, but according to the ninjutsu he used, we have locked his identity." Nagato asked with a solemn expression, "Who is he?" Zetsu firmly said, "Xidagarba of Amatsukami is Dedale of Rock Village." Nagato immediately ordered without hesitation, "Let's go to Rock Village." First update. Chapter 673. Although Danzo is hateful, but compared to the threat of Amatsukami, it is not even worth mentioning because for Nagato, Danzo is the kind of ant that can be trampled to death at any time, and there is not much difference between trampling him to death earlier or later. Therefore, when he learned about Amatsukami, Nagato didn't hesitate and immediately gave up on hunting Danzo and prioritized dealing with Amatsukami, which is more troublesome. Therefore, the members of Akatsuki immediately turned around and rushed towards the direction of the land of Earth. On the way, Zetsu briefly described to Nagato how he and Obsidian encountered Amatsukami's Xidagarba, and then said, "I met Rock Village's Dedale once in the land of grass. He and Xidagarba used the same type of explosive clay, and both of them have the same build and age." Nagato, who was galloping forward, nodded lightly. This type of Kekai Genkai is not common in the shinobi world. So two ninjas using the same type of explosive clay, using the same type of ninjutsu, and having the same build and age are almost non-existent, unless these two people are the same person. Conan, who has always been wary of Zetsu, asked, "Is there any more direct evidence? A member of Amatsukami shouldn't reveal his identity so easily, right?" The surrounding members of Akatsuki also looked at Zetsu. They also felt that this matter is strange. With Amatsukami's cautious style, even a new member shouldn't leave such an obvious flaw. If not for Zetsu's solemn vow, they would have thought that this might be a scheme by Amatsukami to frame them. However, Zetsu shook his head and said with certainty, "No, Dedale, is Xidagarba?" Nagato looked at Zetsu and asked, "Why are you so sure?" Zetsu replied in a deep voice, "Because he knows dust release." Nagato's eyes narrowed, and there was no longer any doubt on his face. In today's shinobi world, only Inoki of the 3 generations has mastered the dust release, which is above the Kekiai limit. If there is a second person who can master the dust release, then it can only be Inoki's direct disciple, the genius ninja of Rock Village, Dedale. At this time, Lil Nan's suspicions were also gone. As long as we capture Dedale, we can unveil the mysterious veil of God's organization. Uchiha Shinichi, who was at the end of the line, had the same eagerness on his face as the other Akatsuki members, but he couldn't help but curse inwardly. What the hell is the boss doing? How can he be so careless in recruiting new members? He actually recruited that crazy Dedale. Oh no, this is really bad. The members of the Akatsuki were the elites of the elites, plus their goal was clear this time, so there was no need to waste time searching separately. Therefore, in just a few days, they passed through several countries and arrived at the land of Earth where the Rock Village was located. Under the starry night, the Akatsuki group avoided the patrols of the Rock Village and quietly appeared on a high cliff on the outskirts of the Rock Village. The Akatsuki members, standing, squatting, sitting, or flying, lined up on the high cliff and looked at the Rock Village in the distance. Looking at the brightly lit Rock Village under the night sky, Onishi, who was carrying the double-bladed flounder on his shoulder, grinned and said, "Hey, I didn't expect the Rock Village to be so prosperous." It seems that the Mist Village is the only village that becomes gloomy at night. Misato, who was sitting on the edge of the cliff, looked gloomy. Ryu, who was squatting on the ground, curled his lips. Bipa Juzo, who was leaning on his sword, was expressionless, but a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes. Obviously, Onishi's words made the few mist renegades around him sigh with emotion. At this time, Zetsu, who was the first to enter the rock village to investigate, came out from the ground and said, "I have inquired. Dead Ale and the 3 generations of Tsuchikage-sama are in the village. It seems that they are in one of the practice fields exclusive to the Tsuchikage-sama, but there are more than a dozen practice fields exclusive to the Tsuchikage-sama in the rock village, so their specific location is still uncertain." Nagato asked lightly, "What about the 4 tails Jinchuriki and the 5 tails Jinchuriki?" Zetsu replied, "The 4 tails Jinchuriki is still under house arrest by the Tsuchikage-sama. As for the 5 tails Jinchuriki, his whereabouts are still unknown. He should be hidden by the Tsuchikage-sama. The 4 tails Jinchuriki is a very experienced and bad-tempered rock ninja. Because of his bad temper, he didn't get along with the 3 generations of Tsuchikage-sama Inoki. So he left the village and wandered in the shinobi world. However, because of the last battle with Mai, the purpose of Akatsuki's capturing Jinchuriki was exposed, so the 3 generations of Tsuchikage-sama Inoki captured Purple, who was wandering in the shinobi world, back to the village and put him under house arrest. At the same time, Inoki also hid the 5 tails Jinchuriki. Not to mention the ninjas from other villages. Even the ninjas of Rock Village rarely know the whereabouts of the 5 tails Jinchuriki. Shinichi suddenly said, "It is very likely that there are other members of Amatsukami hidden in the Rock Village, so it is best for us to find out the specific location of all the targets before we act." Conan echoed, "Well, the strength of the Rock Village itself is not weak. Plus, this place is likely to be the lair of Amatsukami. We should indeed be cautious." Nagato nodded. Shinichi volunteered and said, "I have the Manjikyu Sharingan, so it is easy for me to use Genjutsu to investigate the specific location of Dead Ale." Nagato pondered for a moment and then said, "All right, Shinichi, Zetsu, you 2 go together to investigate the specific location of Dead Ale and report to me immediately if there is any news. Juzo, your Mist squad will go to the residence of the 4 tails Jinchuriki. Once the fight starts, your Mist squad will be responsible for capturing the Jinchuriki." "Yes." The members of Akatsuki responded in unison. Nagato then shifted his gaze towards the brightly lit rock village in the distance and said, "Be careful. There are 2 ninjas in this village who can use dust release." "Understood." Amidst the sound of breaking wind, the members of Akatsuki used body flicker technique one after another to leave the high cliff. Shinichi, who sneaked into the rock village, immediately found an empty corner, bit his finger and shouted, "Summoning technique." Rock Village, Tsuchikage's exclusive practice field. Dedale's clasped hands slowly separated, and a lustrous sphere of light appeared in his palm. He was startled upon seeing this and immediately shouted, old man, come and take a look." 3 generations Inoki, who was dozing off not far away, didn't open his eyes and scolded, "What are you yelling for? Practice honestly for me." Dedale became even more excited. "Old man, look, I learned it." 3 generations Inoki was annoyed. "You brat, what do you think dust release is?" "I suffered a lot to practice dust release in the past." Inoki was just halfway through his lecture when he froze because he saw the sparkling light in Dedale's palm. Second night. Chapter 674. You little brat. When Inoki saw the glittering light in Dedale's palm, a thought emerged in his mind, and that is, the position of the Tsuchikage of the 3 generations should be handed over to this young man. No one knew better than Inoki how difficult it was to cultivate the dust escape technique. Just practicing the dust release requires 3 distinct chakra attributes of earth, fire, and wind, which are the main and secondary attributes, and it has blocked 99% of the ninjas in the entire rock village. And the remaining small number of ninjas who barely meet the requirements of practicing chakra attribute of dust release are either lacking in talent or the amount of chakra isn't enough. Let alone mastering dust release. They can't even try to fuse the 3 attributes of earth, fire, and wind within their body. Even Inoki's son, Yellow Earth, and his granddaughter, Black Earth, are no exception. Therefore, Inoki once pessimistically believed that he might be the last ninja of Rock Village to master dust release. And once he dies, Rock Village's dust release will probably be lost along with Konoha's wood release. However, the scene in front of him swept away the haze that has shrouded his heart for many years. Deadale has shortcomings, frivolous, impulsive, strange artistic views, and so on. Indeed, he doesn't have the appearance of a village leader, but with the cruel situation in the shinobi world, a powerful but unreliable Tsuchikage is far more useful than a reliable Tsuchikage without any strength. In the final analysis, strength is respected in the shinobi world. For a Kage, the ability to govern the village is important, but if they don't even have the strength to protect themselves, then the ability to govern the village is meaningless. Naturally, Deidale didn't know what Inoki was thinking. He smiled and said, "Old man, you see, I have mastered dust release." Although he was happy in his heart, Inoki still put on a serious face. "Humph, you had just touched the threshold. You are still far from mastering dust release." Deidale looked unhappy. "Hey, don't look down on me. Old man, just wait and see. In at most a month, I'll be able to use the dust escape as skillfully as you." Inoki was just about to say something to provoke Deidale and make him work harder when he suddenly noticed a fat orange cat sneakily looking at the training field from the corner of his eye. A ninja cat? With just a quick glance, the experienced Inoki could tell from the chakra wave on the orange tabby that was peeking its head out at the door that it was not an ordinary house cat. At this time, the orange cat also saw Deidale and Inoki in the practice field, so he swaggered inside. After walking up to him, the orange cat looked at Deidale from top to bottom and muttered to himself, "Meow. Sure enough, you're a bit of a fool. No wonder your identity was exposed on your first mission. There was no doubt that this orange cat was Uchiha Shinichi's spiritual beast, Moneymaker." Uchiha Shinichi, who had already sneaked into the Rock Village, obviously didn't have the time to notify Suijin, so he sent Kasai over to Suijin through telepathy, and then split up with Kasai, hoping that he or Kasai would be able to find Deidale first and warn him. "You damn cat, what nonsense are you spouting?" The corners of Deidale's eyes twitched. This was the first time in his life that he had been shamed and angered by a cat, an orange cat at that. He was completely confused. Moneymaker sat on the ground and extended its front paw towards Deidale. "Thank you, 10,000. Deidale opened his eyes wide with an incredulous expression. "Damned cat, you cursed me, and you still dare to ask me for money?" Facing the angry Deidale, Moneymaker wasn't the slightest bit afraid. Head can be broken, blood can flow, but the rule of asking for money can't be forgotten. At this time, Inoki stopped Deidale, who was about to make a move, and calmly asked, "Why are you looking for Deidale? Who sent you?" Moneymaker shook its front paw, indicating that it wouldn't answer without money. Normally, Inoki wouldn't pay attention to this ninja cat that appeared out of nowhere, but this time he suddenly felt uneasy, so he decisively handed Inoki 10,000 ryo and said, "If you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I will let you know what will happen to you if you play tricks on Tsuchikage." Moneymaker happily put the 10,000 into the small bag hanging on its body and looked at Deidale with contempt. "Meow, Deidale, your business level is too poor. Your identity has been exposed. Now that Akatsuki has infiltrated your hidden rock village, you should quickly escape, lest you get caught by Akatsuki and leak their secrets." After saying that, Moneymaker waved its hand at the sluggish Deidale and Inoki, and then disappeared without a trace in a burst of white smoke. After being stunned for a moment, Deidale said, "Old man, did we just get cheated of 10,000 by a damn cat?" Inoki stared at Deidale with spirited eyes and asked word by word, "You joined God's organization?" Boom! Before Deidale could explain, there was a roar outside. Deidale was startled. "No way. What that damn cat said just now is true. Inoki also looked in the direction of the explosion, and his expression suddenly turned cold because the location of the explosion happened to be a secret training ground arranged by the village for the five-tailed Jinchurin. All of a sudden, all sorts of thoughts surged into Inoki's mind. Looking at the five-tailed Jinchurin wearing a red bamboo hat and red heavy armor in front of him, Shinichi Uchiha secretly cursed his bad luck. Originally, he wanted to quickly search the Tsuchikage practice grounds and find dead ale before Zetsu, but he didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to find dead ale. Instead, he ran into the five-tailed Jinchurin, whose whereabouts weren't known to the Akatsuki. Seeing Shinichi dressed as an Akatsuki member, the five-tailed Jinchurin didn't give Shinichi any chance to explain and immediately attacked, resulting in the explosion just now. Soon, the entire rock village was restless. Shinichi, who had superior perception, immediately perceived at least 100 rock ninjas surrounding him. The five-tailed Jinchurin stared at Shinichi and said fiercely, "Humph, your Akatsuki dared to sneak into the village. You're too arrogant." Boom, boom, boom. Just as Shinichi was thinking about how to get away, there was another explosion not far away. Obviously, after he alarmed the rock ninjas here, the other members of Akatsuki who sneaked into the rock village no longer hid and directly attacked. Sigh. Shinichi could only sigh lightly. First update. Chapter 675. The huge flame suddenly lit up half of the sky, illuminating the hidden rock village in the night sky into a fiery red. Roar. Then, a huge figure suddenly appeared in the corner of the rock village, accompanied by a roar that resounded through the sky. What's going on? Isn't that the four-tailed? Did old Purple Senpai go berserk? After seeing that the huge figure that appeared in the corner of the village was not a bystander, but one of the two-tailed beasts in their village, the people in the rock village suddenly exclaimed. It's not a trivial matter for a tailed beast to go berserk, and the four-tailed also mastered the extremely destructive lava-release Kekiai Genkai, the kind of monster that can easily destroy a village. Therefore, groups of rock ninjas rushed towards the area where the four-tailed went berserk from all directions, while the ordinary villagers in the area rushed to escape from the scene. For a time, shouts, cries, and curses were endless. In just the blink of an eye, the originally peaceful rock village fell into endless noise and chaos. Whoosh at this time, accompanied by the sound of the wind breaking, the four people of the Akatsuki organization's Mist team landed on the roof of a tall building less than 2 blocks away from the raging four-tailed. Looking at the four-tailed that was wreaking havoc in the rock village not far away, Lotus smiled and said, "Hey, I didn't expect that guy to go out of control with just a little stimulation. It seems that the strength of the four-tailed Jinchuriki is very ordinary. If we had acted more decisively just now, maybe we could have killed him directly." Bipa Juzo said, "Don't talk nonsense. The leader is still watching not far away." Musashi frowned. "It's not easy to subdue this big guy." In the Mist team, Bipa Juzo and Lotus are both body technique ninjas. While Musashi himself is a pupil technique ninja, they're not good at dealing with large-tailed beasts. At this time, Ghost Mermaid, who was carrying the double-bladed flounder, stood up and said, "I will deal with it. You go and deal with the rock village people. Don't let them hinder me." Bipa Juzo glanced at Ghost Mermaid and confirmed, "You want to fight with the four-tailed?" Lotus Flower had a playful look on her face. "Yo, our tailless-tailed beast wants to arm wrestle with a real tailed beast." The reason why he got this title was because the amount of chakra stored in his body was astonishing, far beyond the scope of ordinary ninjas. The Ghost Mermaid grinned, then swung the flounder towards the four tails. While the Ghost Mermaid was fighting the four tails, a clay bird silently hovered above the village. However, as the village was already in a mess, with explosions rising one after another and dimming the dark sky, not many people noticed that clay bird hovering in the air. On the high cliff not far away, Nagato and Xiaonan, who had been paying close attention to the hidden rock village, naturally noticed the clay bird and the figure standing on it. He should be Daedara. Xiaonan, who had a pair of wings on her back, leaped into the air, turned to Nagato, and said, "I will deal with him." Nagato also needs to guard against the possible appearance of Amatsukami members, so he didn't stop Xiaonan, but said, "He has mastered dust release. You have to be careful." "Okay," Xiaonan responded. Then her whole body turned into countless pieces of paper, floating in the air. On the clay bird, Daedara supported his chin with one hand and observed the situation of the entire rock village. At this time, although the rock village looked chaotic, he was keenly aware that there were only two places where the real fighting broke out. One was the berserk four-tailed, and the other was the training ground where the five-tailed Jinchuriki was. It seems that the Akatsuki's target is the tailed beast. Daedara quickly made a judgment. Then the corner of his mouth rose, and his hands unconsciously reached into the ninja bag on his waist. For him, who has just learned dust release, the current Akatsuki's attack isn't all bad. At least he can try it on the members of the Akatsuki. Just as Daedara was thinking about which battle to join, a flying paper blocked in front of him, then gathered together and turned into a woman wearing the Akatsuki red cloud suit with a paper flower on her head. This woman is naturally Conan. She looked at Daedara coldly and said, "Should I call you Daedara or Xidagarba?" "Xidagarba." Daedara was startled and asked, "What Xidagarba?" Conan said, "I will make you tell me the truth soon." Daedara smiled. "Is that so? You're out of luck to find me." Conan lightly snorted. "Humph, isn't it just dust release?" Daedara's eyes turned cold. "How do you know that I've learned dust release?" He only learned dust release 10 minutes ago. At that time, there was only one Inoki of the 3 generations present. When the Kasai pill arrived, he had already deactivated dust release, so it stands to reason that the only person in the entire shinobi world who knows that he has dust release should be his teacher Inoki. Because of this, after being called out by Conan, his heart was filled with astonishment and shock. My village. Hyojin, who returned to the village from the Sky Fortress, once again lived a tight life of practicing Hashiman Tanka during the day and studying the In seal at night. And after a few days of fermentation, the news of Danzo defeating the Akatsuki organization's 6 Paths of Pain, hundreds of shinobi from Kasanagakure, and the Kumo AB combination spread throughout the shinobi world, causing a huge sensation. With this series of achievements as evidence, it is already an irrefutable fact that Danzo has the strength of a Super Kage. Therefore, including all the shinobi villages canceled the plan to encircle Danzo, only keeping a certain number of scouts to search for the whereabouts of Danzo. Although the 4 generations lay in lost face because of this incident, but considering the threat of Danzo, he still sent an application to the other great shinobi villages to convene the Gakage assembly using the identity of Lei Ying. Naturally, Mai was the first to respond. After all, Danzo served as the acting Naruto before he defected. As a traitor of Mai, his existence alone is enough to embarrass Mai. Therefore, from the standpoint of Mai, Danzo must be dealt with, and he must be dealt with by Mai himself. Because of Danzo's sensitive identity, the Gakage assembly was chosen to be held in my village. Both the Mist and Sand Crypsis agreed to participate in the Gakage assembly. Only the Rock Village did not reply. And just when I was anxiously waiting for the Rock Village's reply, the news that the Rock Village was attacked by the Akatsuki organization suddenly came. Second update. Chapter 676. The conference room was completely quiet. If it weren't for the slight sound of breathing, it would be easy to mistake the entire conference room as empty. On the main seat, 3 generations Naruto glanced at the crowd with a tired expression, sighed faintly, and said, "Everyone has read the summary of the intelligence report. Now let's talk about your thoughts." Closing the report at hand, Jiraiya curled his lips and said, "We have obviously been fooled by that guy Danzo. I don't know if there's anything wrong with his body or not, but the fact that he was injured by Kakashi is definitely intentional. This guy is definitely planning something." Tsunade echoed, "Well, according to the intelligence report from Kumo, when Lang encountered Danzo, Danzo didn't show any signs of injury at all. He deliberately spread the false news that he was injured and leaked his whereabouts. Now it seems that he is probably setting up a trap to lure someone. All the senior members of mine nodded in agreement. There are too many true and false rumors in the past, so no one is clear about the true condition of Danzo's body or his true purpose. Now that all kinds of intelligence have been collected, and the series of plans and achievements of Danzo have also been made public, it's not difficult for everyone to guess what exactly Danzo is planning. It's just that there isn't enough information on who Danzo is plotting against. But with Danzo's current strength of Super Kage, he still needs to set up such a trap. It can be seen that the person he is plotting against is definitely not weak. In the current shinobi world, there aren't many targets that meet this standard. In addition to the 5 Kage, there are only Akatsuki and Amatsukami. Therefore, Danzo's target is most likely Akatsuki and Amatsukami. However, as to why Danzo would take the risk to target Akatsuki and Amatsukami, no one knows. At this time, Fuyue crossed his arms and said, "We must find out where Danzo's Manjikyu Sharingan came from. The Uchiha clan doesn't care about Danzo's life or death. What they care about is where Danzo's Manjikyu Sharingan came from. After all, there are only 6 Manjikyu Uchiha in the shinobi world, and they belong to the Uchiha clan, Fuyue, Jishue, Amatsukami, and Akatsuki Obsidian Shinichi. Therefore, as the head of the Uchiha clan, Fuyue is more concerned about the origin of Danzo than anyone else." At this time, Jishue, who was sitting next to Fuyue, subconsciously looked at Hyojin, who was sitting opposite him without saying a word. Originally, Jishue was not eligible to participate in the Mai's high-level meeting, but due to the exposure of Danzo's Super Kage strength, the threat to the village is too great, coupled with the Akatsuki becoming active in the shinobi world, in order to win over and appease the increasingly restless Uchiha clan. The 3 generations granted Jishue the right to participate in the Mai's high-level meeting. Feeling Jishue's gaze, Hyojin calmly returned a look, signaling Jishue to calm down. No one knows the origin of Danzo's Manjikyu Sharingan better than Hyojin, but he obviously won't mention the Kekkei Jinkai fusion ritual in a high-level meeting. What's more, now that Danzo has been dealt with by him, he naturally doesn't want to cause any trouble. At this time, Hayashi asked, "Have you found any traces of Danzo?" Shikaku, the leader of the Jonin class, replied, "At present, no specific traces of Danzo have been found, but according to the information from the mist, after Danzo was defeated by the 4 generations Mizukage, he fled all the way to the Land of Wind and disappeared in the desert of the Land of Wind, and the Sand Crypsis has already organized people to investigate the desert of the Land of Wind." Regarding the Danzo's defeat at the hands of the 4 generations Mizukage, no one has any doubt. First of all, Danzo has experienced a series of fierce battles. Even if he wasn't injured, chakra must have consumed a lot of energy, and his state is certainly not at its peak. Secondly, the location of the battle was on the Boundless Sea, which is the home field of the 4 generations Mizukage. Even if the 4 generations Mizukage combat power is doubled, it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Zhuan Xiao Chun sighed lightly. Hiding in the desert of the Land of Wind. What a mess. Kaichi Yamanaka of the intelligence class said, "The Cloud Village hopes to use this meeting to gather the power of the 5 Kage to launch a decisive encirclement and suppression of Danzo, and eradicate the hidden danger of Danzo, which is a huge threat to the peace of the shinobi world." Jiraiya said, "I didn't expect Lang to ask for help. It seems that Danzo really gave him a lot of pressure." Tsunade looked worried. "But with such a thing happening in the Rock Village, wouldn't it be too risky for us to focus on the encirclement and suppression of Danzo at this time?" 3 generations Naruto nodded. "This is exactly what I'm worried about. The Rock Village was raided by the Akatsuki. The 3rd Tsuchika Jinoki was seriously injured, and his whereabouts were unknown. The 4-tailed Jinchuriki and the 5-tailed Jinchuriki both fell into the hands of the Akatsuki. The entire Rock Village was almost destroyed, and more than half of the Rock Ninjas were killed or injured. When this news reached the ears of Mai, it was like a bolt from the blue. catching Mai and the others off guard. One must know that the strength of the current rock village is no less than that of Mai and Kumo. Not only is there the 3 generations Tsuchikage who mastered the dust release, but there are also the 2 Jinchuriki and Kumo shinobi. Among the 5 great shinobi villages, Rock Village is obviously stronger than the Mist and Sand Crypsis and belongs to the same echelon as Mai and Kumo shinobi. But even so, such a powerful shinobi village was still vulnerable in front of the Akatsuki organization. Not only were the 3 generations Tsuchikage injured and missing, but even the 2 Jinchuriki were also wiped out by the Akatsuki organization. As a result, as many as 3 Jinchuriki have fallen into the hands of the Akatsuki organization. In addition, in the previous battle with Mai, the 3-tailed Jinchuriki, Yagura, and the 8-tailed Jinchuriki were all killed by the Akatsuki organization's erudite chakra. Therefore, the only tailed beasts that haven't been touched by the Akatsuki organization are the 1 in Gaara's body, the 6 in Hagoromo's body, the 7 in Hibari's body, and the 9 tails in Naruto's body. Although they don't know the ultimate purpose of the Akatsuki organization, as more and more tailed beasts fall into the hands of the Akatsuki organization, 3 generations instinctively felt a strong sense of unease. Confused, Hayashi asked, "Hasn't the Akatsuki organization been very peaceful recently? Why did they suddenly launch a raid on the Rock Village? Is it because of the 4th and 5th tails?" Kakashi, who was also allowed to participate in the high-level meeting like Jishui, shook his head and said, "I'm afraid that's not the case. I think that the Akatsuki organization's raid on the Rock Village is related to the new member of Amitsukami, Xidagarba, First Sentinel." Chapter 677. Many of the Mai executives who attended the meeting did not know about the existence of Xidagarba, a new member of Amitsukami. Therefore, after listening to Kakashi's explanation, they were all puzzled. After obtaining the permission of 3 generations Naruto, Kakashi told the senior Mai members in detail how they encountered the Akatsuki members when they were hunting for Danzo, and how they were helped by Xidagarba of Amitsukami. He also emphasized on the exciting battle between Xidagarba and Obsidian. After listening to Kakashi's description, Hayashi took a deep breath. A 15 or 16-year-old youth not only mastered the explosion escape blood limit, but he also mastered the dust escape blood limit elimination. This was really hard to believe. Hayashi was not the only one who had a strange expression on his face. The other senior members of Mai, who didn't know about it in advance, were also surprised. The status of dust release in the shinobi world makes every ninja who has mastered dust release inevitably become the focus of the major shinobi villages. Jishui looked at Hyojin with a puzzled expression. Obviously, he was more curious about Xidagarba, the new member of Amitsukami, because he had never heard Hyojin mention such a person in the organization. Hyojin was speechless. He finally understood the reason why the Akatsuki raided Rock Village. When he thought about how he was forced to use the second Earth Release clone to fight against the Akatsuki's members in order to rescue Storm and other Umbu's old subordinates. And the result was that the Rock Village was destroyed by the Akatsuki. 4th-tailed and 5-tailed were captured, and Tsuchikage was nowhere to be found. He couldn't help but sigh at the impermanence of fate. Fuyue narrowed his eyes and snorted. As expected of God's organization. Every member they choose is a Kaga-level elite. Zhuan Xiaochun said, "With explosion release and dust release, this Xidagarba should be a member of the Rock Village, right?" Kakashi gently nodded. "I also have the same suspicion, so after returning to the village, I started to investigate from the Rock Village." After saying that, Kakashi got up and distributed a pile of documents that he had prepared in advance to all the elders present, and then said, "Soon I locked onto a rock ninja that matches the identity of Xidagarba. The information in front of you is all the information about this rock ninja collected by the village." Hyojin opened the documents in front of him, and, as expected, Dedale's photo. Hyojin looked at Dedale. Same explosive clay. Same explosion release ninjutsu, Physical characteristics and age are very similar, plus he is Inoki's disciple. Yes, it's this guy. Fuyue quickly came to a conclusion. After reading the document, the other high-level members also nodded, because the probability of there being a second ninja in the shinobi world that matches these clues is almost zero, so everyone has already determined that the disciple of the 3 generations Tsuchikage is the new member of Amitsukami, Xidagarba. At this time, Kakashi also said the Akatsuki probably knew that Rock Village's Dadale is Xidagarba. That's why they raided Rock Village. I didn't expect there to be such a reason. After a pause, Fuyue raised a question, but if Dadale is a member of Amitsukami, then why didn't Amitsukami intervene when the Akatsuki raided Rock Village? If they get involved, the Akatsuki won't be able to gain any advantage, right? After pondering for a while, Kakashi said, my personal guess is that Danzo attracted the attention of Amitsukami, so Akatsuki took advantage of the loophole. Everyone pondered for a while and felt that what Kakashi said is very reasonable. It is very likely that Danzo wanted to plot against Amitsukami, and Amitsukami also sent Xidagarba to investigate Danzo's hideout in the land of hot water, which means that Amitsukami is also paying attention to Danzo. Because they focused on Danzo, they ignored the threat of Amitsukami, which led to them not intervening in Akatsuki's raid on Rock Village. From a reasonable point of view, it makes sense. Listening to everyone's analysis, Hyojin only felt that it is ridiculous. He obviously accidentally exposed the second Earth release body, which has not been fully developed, but it led to a lot of trouble. Jisue was at a loss. At this time, Hayashi suddenly asked 3 generations, Naruto-sama, why don't you directly confirm with Amitsukami? Hayashi's question immediately attracted the attention of all the Mai's higher-ups, and everyone's eyes instantly focused on 3 generations Naruto. Cough, cough. After coughing twice, 3 generations Naruto helplessly said, the village can't contact Amitsukami at the moment, and we have lost contact with Wind Chime and Homasi. What? Except for a few of Naruto's higher-ups who know about the situation, such as Hayashi, Fuyue, and other higher-ups were all shocked. Before, they always thought that the village had a channel to contact Amitsukami, so they weren't worried about Amitsukami's raid. Now that they learned that the village has completely lost contact with Amitsukami, they suddenly panicked because with the current strength of Amitsukami, no village can resist Amitsukami's raid alone. Looking at everyone's uneasiness, 3 generations immediately changed to a tough tone and said, we must use this time's Kage assembly to completely solve the threat of Danzo, and at the same time, we must speed up the search for Tsuchikage and Dadale's whereabouts. Dadale is likely to be our only way to contact Amitsukami at the moment. Yes. 3 generations' tough tone made the participants feel like they have a backbone. At this time, Hyojin suddenly raised his hand and said to 3 generations, Naruto-sama, I am going to conduct a practical training for all the students of the ninja school in the near future. I hope that the village can cooperate with me. The Akatsuki's raid on Rock Village was a wake-up call for Suijin, so he decided to use double insurance to speed up his Kekiai trap plan and also speed up the cultivation of the next generation, especially Naruto and Sasuke, the 2 children of the prophecy. As long as Naruto and Sasuke can grow up smoothly, with the help of Sage of 6 Paths, even if Hyojin is careless, there will be Naruto and Sasuke to support the situation, so the situation will not fall into a hopeless situation, so that Hyojin won't even have the chance to launch a backup plan. 3 generations thought that Hyojin simply felt the threat of Danzo and the Akatsuki organization and wanted to speed up the growth of the children in the ninja school, so they nodded and said, good. Submit a plan as soon as possible. After the meeting, Hyojin, Jisue, and Kakashi walked out of the Naruto building side by side. This time, the village's high-level meeting clearly reflected the trend of the replacement of the old and the new. The older generation of 3 generations began to gradually fade away from the center of the village's power, while the younger generation of Hyojin's generation has more and more power to speak. Second update. Chapter 678. As former teammates of the Umbu and now representatives of the new generation of the village, Hyojin, Jishuei, and Kakashi walk side by side out of the Naruto building. Under the attention of many my ninjas along the way, they chatted casually. Glancing at Kakashi's ordinary Jonin attire today, Hyojin casually asked, "I heard that you have officially withdrawn from the Umbu." "Well, it means 3 generations." Kakashi responded absent-mindedly. Today, he was allowed to participate in the high-level meeting of the village as an exception, and he was allowed to withdraw from the Umbu. These are undoubtedly signals that 3 generations will soon promote and use Kakashi. In fact, after Kakashi successfully mastered the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, 3 generations has consciously begun to cultivate him as the successor of Naruto. This is not a secret in the eyes of discerning people. After all, Kakashi is the disciple of 4 generations and belongs to the most orthodox Naruto ninja in the younger generation of Mai. Kakashi obviously has something on his mind. After chatting casually for a while, he said goodbye to Hyojin and Jishuei. Looking at Kakashi's departing figure, Jishuei said, "Kakashi, senpai seems to have a lot on his mind recently." Hyojin sighed and said, "He is carrying too many things on his back." Jishuei couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Senpai, we are actually carrying a lot of things on our backs. If it weren't for you, I would definitely be overwhelmed by these secrets. By the way, what's going on with Xidagarba? Is he a newly recruited member of the organization?" "Well, almost." Hyojin can't explain in detail to Jishuei about the clone at the moment, so he could only give a perfunctory answer. Jishuei curiously asked, "Is Xidagarba really Rock Village's dead ale?" "No, Xidagarba is someone else. You will know about this in the future." Shaking his head, Hyojin changed the topic. "How is Itachi? How bad is your vision?" Jishuei nodded. "He has used up too much of his pupillary power this time. His eyesight has deteriorated. In the previous battle on the island, both Hyojin and Danzo used eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, although Jishuei only used Manjikyu Sharingan. But because of the Hashirama cells transplanted into his body, he was able to recover the consumed pupil power. Only Itachi was a normal kaleidoscope Uchiha. So after using so many kaleidoscope techniques, Itachi's vision inevitably deteriorated. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin said, "If his vision deteriorates seriously, I suggest that he undergo a transplant surgery. Anyway, he will have to do it eventually. Moreover, I have recently made a breakthrough in the field of fusion solution, and the success rate of the surgery is at least 5% higher than when you were at that time. It is worth a try." Jishuei has been worried about Itachi's vision, so after listening to Hyojin's words, he was overjoyed. "Great. When we return to the clan, I will tell him the good news." For dojutsu ninjas who are accustomed to relying on dojutsu, the decline in their eyesight is a great weakening, which will seriously affect the insight and judgment of dojutsu ninjas on the battlefield. It is a big problem that must be solved as soon as possible. After a while, the joy on Jishuei's face was replaced by a deep worry. He hesitantly asked, "Kuroto-san, what action do you think Akatsuki will take next? Will their next target be Armai?" Hyojin thought for a moment and said, "They should not take any action in the short term. Akatsuki's sudden attack on the Rock Village shows that they are afraid of Amitsukami. Otherwise, they would not have given up on tracking the Danzo and turned around to attack the Rock Village just for Xidagarba. From Akatsuki's standpoint, the fact that they didn't manage to dig out Amitsukami from the Rock Village meant that they had already alerted Amitsukami. In the short term, Akatsuki wouldn't make any further moves to avoid falling into Amitsukami's trap. In addition, they also captured 4 Tails and 5 Tails Jinchuriki along the way this time. It would take some time to deal with these 2 Jinchuriki. In short, as long as Hyojin's false image of Yama as the strongest shinobi in the shinobi world is not exposed, then Akatsuki won't be able to act recklessly in the shinobi world. Therefore, the current situation of Konoha being on guard against both the Danzo and Akatsuki and making a lot of arrangements, in Hyojin's opinion, it is all for naught, and it is completely a battle of wits and courage with the air. After walking for a while, the 2 of them arrived outside the ninja school. Seeing that the bulletin board outside the school gate was full of people, Hyojin couldn't help but ask, "Hey, why are there so many people here?" Jisue smiled and said, "Kuroto-san, did you forget that today is the day when the results of the taijutsu assessment will be announced? Irika should have already reported the results of the taijutsu assessment to you, right?" Hyojin also smiled and said, "Oh, so that's how it is." Since he became the headmaster of the ninja school has set a rule that there will be a monthly test and a monthly announcement. Last month, the test was about the three-body technique, and last month's test was about taijutsu. Today happens to be the day when the results of the taijutsu assessment will be announced, so the bulletin board at the school gate is full of people. As he passed through the crowd, Hyojin glanced at the bulletin board and glanced at the name at the end of the list and grinned. This time, the person who fell to the last place in the taijutsu assessment is not someone else, but Uzumaki Naruto. It is reasonable to say that with Naruto's strength, he won't fall to the last place in the taijutsu assessment, but fate is so magical. His first opponent was unexpectedly Sasuke, and the result is self-evident. He lost instantly. In the second round, he met Xiaoli and lost again. In the third round, he met Ding Ci, who was just eliminated by Ningxi, and after a hard battle, he lost again. In the fourth round, he met the sickly Yakumo, and Naruto felt that defeating a weak girl was unfair, so he took the initiative to admit defeat. In the fifth round, he met Ya, who was also unlucky. Both sides knew that they can't lose again, so they had a fierce battle. In the end, Naruto was slightly inferior and was defeated by Ya, becoming the person who lost all 5 battles and had the least points in the entire assessment. Therefore, he took over the title of last place from Xiaoli and became the new last place in the ninja school. On the playground of the ninja school, "Sasuke, I want to challenge you." Knowing that he became the new last place, Naruto's face turned red and directly found Sasuke. Last place." With his hands in his pockets, Sasuke contemptuously snorted and walked away. "Ningxi, I want to challenge you." Naruto found the second place in the physical technique assessment. Ningxi ignored Naruto and walked away. He was angry and annoyed at losing to Sasuke. Seeing that both Sasuke and Ningxi ignored his challenge, Naruto shouted, "Ah, you two bastards, how dare you ignore me?" Xiaoli came over and patted Naruto's shoulder. "Naruto, although we are the last place, we can still surpass those geniuses through hard work. Come on." Naruto said with a sad face, thick eye-browed watermelon head, "Don't put me in the same category as you. I'm not at the bottom. The White Snake Immortal said that I'm a rare genius." Asking for monthly votes. Chapter 679. As soon as Hyojin returned to the headmaster's office, Ningxi followed him in with a depressed look on his face. Hyojin asked, "Ningxi, what's the matter?" After bowing deeply to Hyojin, Ningxi said guiltily, "Sensei, this time I have lost face for you. I have lost face for our Hyuga clan." In this physical technique assessment, Ningxi lost to Sasuke with a slight disadvantage, which was beyond the expectations of many people. Hyojin froze for a moment, and then smiled. "I have told you many times, a temporary victory or defeat is nothing. You don't have to comfort me. I know I've let everyone down this time." Ningxi lowered his head and said in a depressed tone, "If he lost to Sasuke in a normal competition, he would not be so depressed. But he lost to Sasuke in the physical technique assessment where the Hyuga clan has the advantage, which is unacceptable to him in any case." Looking at Ningxi, Hyojin did not say anything more. Hyojin is actually very clear that because of the competition mechanism deliberately introduced by the headmaster, the current ninja school is completely different from the original ninja school of a loose and leisurely atmosphere in the ninja school of the original world. In particular, the monthly assessment results announcement system not only increases the pressure on every student, but also increases the pressure on the major clans behind the students. As far as he knows, now the major clans have privately carried out extra training for their children to avoid their children from making a fool of themselves in the ninja school assessment and dragging down the reputation of their family. Naruto unexpectedly fell to the last place this time, is actually related to this. If it weren't for the Aikido clan behind Ding Ci and the Inazuka clan behind you, who privately gave Ding Ci and your remedial lessons, they would not have been able to defeat Naruto in physical technique. It was precisely because of this competitive atmosphere that every assessment was not only a competition between the students themselves, but also the prestige of the families behind the students. That was why when the results of the assessment were announced earlier, there was a huge crowd in front of the bulletin board. Therefore, the fact that the Hyuga clan lost to the Uchiha clan in physical technique is likely to become a hot topic of discussion among the villagers for a period of time in the future. After leaving Ningxi hanging for a while, Hyojin, who was drafting the actual combat drill plan, said slowly, "The project of this month's school assessment will be an actual combat drill that is close to a real battle." Ningxi raised his head. "Actual combat drill?" Hyojin glanced at Ningxi and said lightly, "Only in actual combat can a ninja's true strength be tested, so I hope to be able to perform well in this assessment." Ningxi quickly promised, "Sensei, please rest assured, this time I will not let you and the family lose face." Hyojin moved his gaze back to the plan that was being drafted and said casually, "By the way, this actual combat assessment happens to overlap with the upcoming 5 Kage assembly held in the village. At that time, it will not only be my family that will pay attention to this actual combat drill. So whether you can make a name for yourself and your family in front of the 5 Kage depends on your ability." "What?" Ningxi was taken aback at first, but immediately his eyes ignited with fighting spirit. Kuroto's light words suddenly tugged at Niji's heartstrings, causing his blood to surge and his whole body to suddenly be filled with energy. For a child of his age, there is nothing more glorious than making a name for himself and his family in front of the 5 Kage. Hyojin continued, "The news will be announced in 2 days, so prepare well." "Yes." Ningxi nodded again and again. His mind was no longer on this. Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth and said with a smile, "Don't be happy too early. This actual combat drill was personally drafted by me. The difficulty is not small. If you don't have the determination to die, it is very likely that you will make a fool of yourself." At night, with his hands in his trouser pockets, Sasuke had a proud smile on his face all the way from the ninja school back to the clanland. In all the assessments of the ninja school, he got the first place, especially in the physical technique assessment of the school. He defeated Ningxi, the genius of the Hyuga clan who specializes in softboxing. Not only did he get the first place again, but he also proved to everyone that even the physical technique of the Uchiha clan is not worse than the Hyuga clan. "I want to be the first to tell my brother this good news. I am now the same as him." At the thought of being able to dominate the ninja school like his brother Itachi and get his father's praise, the corners of Sasuke's mouth rose even more. Coming to the Uchiha clan's exclusive training ground, Sasuke found that his brother Itachi is really practicing shuriken throwing in the training ground. In addition, Jishui is also on the side, so he trotted over and said, "Brother, Jishui-san." Seeing Sasuke running over, Jishui and Itachi tacitly ended the topic of cell transplantation. "Brother, in this school's physical technique assessment, I got the first place again." As Sasuke said that, he showed an expression that said, "Praise me quickly." Jishui said with a smile, "I didn't expect Sasuke to be able to defeat Ningxi this time. I was really surprised when I heard it." Sasuke curled his lips. "Brother Jishui, what do you mean by this? I defeated Ningxi with my own strength, humph, in front of our Uchiha clan Sharingan. The Hyuga family soft fist is nothing." Itachi and Jishui looked at each other and smiled. Sasuke then said to Itachi, "Brother, rest assured, I will definitely keep the title of the first place in the same batch until graduation." Itachi said, "Don't be proud. I heard that the students in this batch are very hardworking. If you relax, you will be caught up by others." At this time, Jishui remembered that Hyojin proposed the actual combat drill at the high-level meeting. So he said, "Sasuke, this month's school assessment is likely to be a combat drill, and most likely the rules will be set by the principal himself, so be careful." "Combat drill? Hey, that's what I'm best at." A smile appeared on Sasuke's childish face, and his eyes were full of eagerness in the ninja school's faculty dormitory. Do stared at the peaceful my village outside the window, the expression on his face uncertain, and he thought in his heart, could something have happened to Orochimaru? It had been 2 days since the scheduled communication with Orochimaru, but Orochimaru's communication had still not arrived. This kind of thing had never happened before, so Do felt a little uneasy. At this moment, Do's eyes suddenly turned cold, and he noticed that someone was approaching his dormitory, but soon his expression softened again. Knock, knock. Not long after, there was a knock on the door outside. Opening the door, Do asked, Naruto, it's so late. Why don't you go home to rest? Naruto, who still had faint traces of tears on his face, said, Brother Do, can you teach me martial arts? Second chapter. Chapter 680. 1 week later, after a thorough investigation by the 4 great shinobi villages, the details of the Akatsuki's attack on Rock Village were finally revealed to everyone. This attack was the same as the attack on Mai. It also happened at night, and the 4 Jinchuriki of Rock Village inexplicably went berserk, opening the whole chaos. In the process of evacuating the ordinary villagers, Dedale, the 5-tailed Jinchuriki, the elite Jonin Yellow, and other experts of Rock Village immediately launched a counterattack. Especially the fierce battle between Dedale and Konin of the Akatsuki. Both of them are ninjas with amazing destructive power, and even if they deliberately restrain themselves, the aftermath of their battle almost razed half of the village. Then the leader of the Akatsuki, Nagato, who has the Rinnegan, took action. With Nagato's attack, the situation that was originally in a stalemate suddenly changed. Ordinary rock ninjas were simply unable to withstand a single blow from Nagato. Even the elite Jonin of Rock Village could only slightly consume some of Nagato's chakra. They couldn't pose any real threat to Nagato. Nagato defeated the Rock Village's shinobi army with a sweeping momentum, subduing the Rock Village's 5-tailed Jinchuriki and almost capturing Dedale. Just when Dedale was in danger, the 3 generations Inoki suddenly took action and saved Dedale from Nagato, and finally escaped with Dedale with serious injuries. After this battle, the Rock Village was destroyed. However, when Mai was destroyed, the 3 generations Inoki considered how the Rock Village would deal with the same situation as Mai. So during the period when the Akatsuki was dormant, he secretly moved the Rock Village's secret library of ninjutsu, files, and other important materials to another safe and hidden place. At the same time, he also built many temporary shelters in the land of Earth to accommodate the fleeing villagers. It can be said that before the Akatsuki's raid occurred, the 3 generations Inoki had already prepared for the worst-case scenario that Rock Village might fall, and arranged an escape route for Rock Village. But even so, this battle still greatly damaged Rock Village, and the loss of personnel and property is immeasurable. Fortunately, 3 generations of Inoki still exist, and as long as he is still alive, no matter how poor Rock Village is, it can still be called one of the 5 great shinobi villages. In addition to the news from Rock Village, the whereabouts of Danzo is also the focus of the shinobi world. However, it was as if the Danzo had vanished from the face of the earth. There was no trace of him at all. Various forces had searched the entire desert of the Wind Nation, but they did not find any clues. Hence, the various factions began to speculate that Danzo was truly injured and was hiding somewhere to recuperate. After all, Danzo's previous record of sweeping the 6 paths of pain, Kusanagi Shinobi, and Kyumo Shinobi is too shocking. If he didn't suffer any injuries after such a series of battles, then it would be too terrifying. And just as Hyojin expected, after the Akatsuki raided Rock Village, the Akatsuki didn't immediately carry out the next action, but went into dormancy again. Obviously, the Akatsuki is also worried that Amitsukami would set up a trap for them. These disturbances in the shinobi world didn't affect Hyojin, and he is still carrying out his various plans in an orderly manner. Because the meridians of the Earth Clone number 2 were damaged, it will take some time to recover, so the development of the Earth clone can only be delayed for the time being. Therefore, Kuroto's energy is focused on practicing the Hashiman Tanku, improving the In's seal, and preparing for the actual combat drill of the shinobi school. Perhaps because the actual combat drill happened to overlap with the Gakage assembly, all the major shinobi clans in the My Kingdom are working hard, hoping that their children can make a name for themselves in this actual combat drill. Even if they can't show their faces, at least they won't make a fool of themselves in front of the Gakage. In the classroom of the shinobi school, feeling the eager and nervous gazes of the children, Hyojin smiled and said, "In order to simulate a real battlefield, this actual combat drill will be carried out in the form of group confrontation." Group confrontation? The children were surprised, but at the same time, they were also looking forward to it. If they could form a team with excellent teammates, then the probability of winning the actual combat drill would undoubtedly be greatly increased. So, for a time, many people's eyes were on Sasuke and Neji, the two powerful students of the same batch. Sasuke, who was sitting in his seat with his hands crossed over his chest, seemed to enjoy this kind of gaze. The corners of his mouth were smiling, and there wasn't the slightest trace of awkwardness on his face. For him, it doesn't matter what kind of teammates he forms, because even if he is alone, he is still confident that he can win this actual combat drill. Compared to Sasuke, Ningxi slightly frowned. Ningxi is very clear that his overall strength is obviously inferior to Sasuke. So if the teammates he forms with are too weak, then the probability of him defeating Sasuke in the actual combat drill will be even lower. Naruto looked left and right, scratching his ears and cheeks, trying to figure out which teammates he should form with. Beside him, Hinata blushed and timidly peeked at Naruto. Fu, who is sitting in the last row, is muttering that she wants to form a team with Ya and Ding Ci, who are familiar with her. In the corner, Sai is sketching on a small notebook. Shikamaru is bored to death, and Sakura and Ino, as usual, are looking at Sasuke like love-struck idiots. After the news of the grouping was announced, the classroom suddenly became noisy. At this time, Hyojin said again, "For the sake of fairness, your grouping has been decided this time." Irika announced it. After receiving Hyojin's order, Irika immediately walked to the podium and loudly announced the grouping of the actual combat drill. Hyojin did not deliberately change the grouping of Mai's 12 roaches, so they still maintained the original time and space. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were in one group. Ningxi, Xiaoli, and Tian were in another group. Shikamaru, Ding Ci, and Ino were in another group, and Hinata, and Shino were in another group. The only difference is that among the children who are paying special attention to, there are also Zen, Yakumo, Sai, and Takunin Mura's Shichibi Lifu's group. After Irika announced the grouping, some people in the classroom were happy and some were sad. Naruto was the first to stand up and said discontentedly, "Why do I have to be in a group with that guy Sasuke?" Irika said with a black face, "Idiot, because you're the last one. Putting you in a group with the strongest Sasuke can balance the strength of all the groups." Sasuke snorted coldly and said, "Humph, the last one. Don't drag me down this time." "You arrogant guy," Naruto said and started playing with Sasuke. Ningxi, who was on the side, let out a long sigh of relief. Tian, who had been paying attention to Ningxi, asked curiously, "Ningxi, what's wrong?" Ningxi shook his head and said, "Nothing, I'm just glad that I didn't get into a group with that idiot Naruto." Although they were both the last ones, in Ningxi's eyes, Xiaoli, who was in the same group as him, was obviously more reliable than Naruto. First chapter. Chapter 681. Bang, bang, bang. The black shadow shuttled back and forth, stirring up a huge wave of air in the training ground. The whistling sound produced by the air wave gradually converged into a line, turning into a low, dull sound that seemed to have substance. After a while, the black figure stopped and revealed its strong and healthy body. There was no doubt that this was Hyojin, who was practicing the 8 inner hidden gates in his exclusive training ground. Oh! Although he was panting lightly, Hyojin's face was very ruddy, and he still seemed to be at ease. After several weeks of hard practice, his body had gradually become accustomed to maintaining the first three gates: gate of opening, gate of healing, and gate of life at the same time. After a while, Hyojin's breathing calmed down. He clenched his fists and said, "Hey, after adapting to the gate of life, my body's control seems to have improved a lot." When he was practicing just now, he faintly found that his body seemed to have become a lot more flexible. Not only was his speed faster, but his endurance was also better. Even his nerve reaction seemed to have improved significantly. It could be said that the overall quality of his body had improved. It must be known that at Hyojin's current level, the effect of ordinary exercise was very limited. Most of the time, exercise was just to maintain the state and prevent the decline of physical fitness. However, practicing the 8 inner hidden gates could bring him such a significant improvement. It could be seen that the 8 inner hidden gates was indeed unique in digging out the potential of the human body. The next step is to break through the 4th gate, gate of pain. I don't know if I'm faster or if Kakashi is faster. Kuroda couldn't help but smile at the thought of competing with Kakashi in the cultivation of the Hashiman inner hidden gates. Because of the backfeeding of the Tenseigan to the body over the years, Hyojin's current aptitude was stronger than Kakashi's, who was 1 in 1,000 or even 1 in 10,000 geniuses. Coupled with his huge advantage in chakra's amount, he thought that he would not lose to Kakashi in practicing the 8 inner hidden gates. Swish at this time, Homasubi used the body flicker technique to land on the practice field and reported to Kuroda, "Kuroda-san, all the people you are looking for have arrived. Do you want to see them now?" Hyojin picked up a towel to wipe his sweat and said, "Take them to the principal's office first. I'll be there soon." Sure, Sui responded, and then his figure disappeared from the training ground. After a quick shower, Hyojin changed into casual clothes and walked to the principal's office. ICL literature, #free reading. At this moment, in the headmaster's office, other than Jishui, there were 4 other people standing side by side. They were Irika, Shuei Mu, Steel, and Shun Uezumo. Principal. Seeing Hyojin come in, they all bowed to Hyojin. Sitting back in his seat, Hyojin glanced at the 4 Chunin ninjas in front of him and said, "My arrangements, Jishui, should have already told you, right?" The 4 nodded respectively. Only Irika's face showed an expression of wanting to say something. Noticing this, Hyojin asked, "Irika, do you have anything to say?" Irika hesitated for a moment and said, "Principal, do we need to do this? We are all Chunin. How could those children defeat us?" Kuroda grinned at Kuroda. He called Irika, Shuei Mu, Steel, and Shun Uezumo to the principal's office, not for anything else, but for the upcoming actual combat drill. He had already drawn up the rules of the actual combat drill of the ninja school and announced it to the public. The location of the actual combat drill was in the Forest of Death at the edge of the village. The students would enter the Forest of Death from different entrances and groups, and then engage in an unruly melee in the Forest of Death. Before each group entered the Forest of Death, they would carry 3 tool scrolls. Every time they lost in the Forest of Death, they would lose 1 tool scroll. If a group lost all the tool scrolls, the group would be judged to be eliminated, and the group that won the most tool scrolls would be the final winner of the actual combat drill. And in order to make the actual combat drill more difficult, Suijin also deliberately arranged a team of instructors, namely Irika, Mizuki, Tetsuya, and Kamizuki Izumo, the 4 experienced Chunin in front of him. The instructors would also enter the Forest of Death and indiscriminately attack any group of students that they found in the actual combat drill. Therefore, how to avoid the instructors was one of the key points of the actual combat assessment. Seeing that Hyojin didn't seem to be moved, Irika continued, "Principal, these children have only entered the ninja school for less than half a year, and now they are going to undergo such a harsh assessment. Will it?" Before Irika could finish, Hyojin interrupted him. "I can wait for them to grow slowly, but the Akatsuki organization may not have the patience. We don't have much time." This. Irika opened his mouth, but he couldn't refute Hyojin. Shuei Mu interrupted. "Please rest assured, Principal. I will let these kids understand the difference between actual combat and assessment. Hyojin said, don't look down on these kids just because you are Chunin. If you are easily defeated by these kids, it will be embarrassing. Mizuki smiled proudly. You underestimate us Chunin too much. Hyojin glanced at Shuei-mu and said with a smile, I'm looking forward to your performance. After Irika and the others left the principal's office, Ji-Shuei said, Senpai, isn't it too strict to let the instructors join the actual combat drill this time? In Ji-Shuei's opinion, even Sasuke, who was the strongest among the students, couldn't be a match for the 4 Chunin in the instructor team, so the addition of the instructor team would inevitably be a one-sided crushing. Hyojin put away the smile on his face and asked, Ji-Shuei, you have already been on the battlefield when you were their age, right? Ji-Shuei was stunned for a moment, then immediately nodded. He went to the battlefield when he was less than 10 years old, and at the age of 11, he awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan on the battlefield. Kuroto turned his head and looked out of the window. The current situation in the shinobi world is even more critical than during the Third Shinobi World War. Even a great shinobi village like the Rock Village can be easily destroyed. In such a situation, letting the children play ninja games in a ninja school for a few years without any worries is irresponsible to them and the entire village. Ji-Shuei said, I didn't think it through. Hyojin then said, what's more, sending a team of instructors is not an actual combat drill. This is just an appetizer. Ji-Shuei was taken aback. What? Do you have other arrangements? Hyojin said, just wait and see. Second Sentinel. Chapter 682. On the Giant Clay Dragon. From time to time, Red glanced at Dedale with an inquisitive look on her face. Noticing Red's gaze, Dedale's face turned black as he said uncomfortably, I told you, I'm not that damn Xidagarba. Don't look at me like that. Red quickly said, I have no intention of spying on your Amitsukami. I just want to know about Windchime. How is he recently? Seeing that Red didn't believe him, Dedale lightly snorted and turned his head to the side. 3 generations Inoki, who was sitting in the front, shook his head. Mai's girl, Dedale, didn't lie. He really isn't a member of Amitsukami. Inoki also suspected that Dedale had joined Amitsukami without telling him. But after inquiring about the time when Xidagarba appeared, he ruled out Dedale as a suspect. Because when Xidagarba appeared in the country of hot water and fought with Akatsuki, Dedale was practicing dust release with him. So it was impossible for Dedale to be Xidagarba. Red, don't say any more. Kakashi stopped Red, who was about to continue questioning. At this time, Inoki asked Kakashi, the other Kages should have arrived, am I right? Kakashi gently nodded. Yes, Laying-sama, Mizuki-sama, and Kazuki-sama have arrived in the village smoothly. They're just waiting for you to arrive, then the Kage meeting can be held. Kakashi and Red were sent by 3 generations Naruto after receiving the message from Rock Village to Mai, so both of them were now flying towards Mai's clay dragon. It didn't take long for the clay dragon to reach Konoha. After landing at the secret entrance of the original route base, the 4 people on the clay dragon went through the secret entrance outside the village and went all the way to the original route base under Mai. After sending 3 generations and Dedale to the secret meeting room, Kakashi and Red left the original route base. On the way, Red asked, Kakashi, do you think Dedale is Xidagarba? After muttering to himself for a moment, Kakashi replied, they don't seem to be the same person in terms of temperament. You have also seen Xidagarba. He is a very calm guy, while this Dedale's character is very jumpy. The 2 of them have opposite characters. Red said, I also feel that something is wrong, but the Xidagarba's explosive clay is too similar to Xidagarba. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Kakashi said, actually, you don't need to spend so much effort to judge. As long as you confirm one thing, you will know whether Dedale is God's organization Xidagarba. Red's eyes narrowed. Dust release? Kakashi nodded and said, if Dedale also knows dust release, then it can basically be concluded that he is Xidagarba. Using the same kind of explosive clay may be a coincidence. But if he also knows dust release, then it can't be explained by coincidence, because there should be no one in the shinobi world who can develop dust release without the guidance of 3 generations Tsuchikage. Red echoed. If he knows dust release, then it means that he is very good at disguising himself. His frivolity and nervousness are actually a deliberate disguise. Just as Red and Kakashi were discussing whether Dead Ale was God's organization's Ksitagarba, the same discussion was taking place in the secret conference room of the 5 Kage Assembly. 4 generations Lei Ing impatiently said, "All the evidence points to you. How long are you going to quibble?" Dead Ale crossed his arms over his chest and directly ignored the question of 4 generations Lei Ing. 3 generations Tsuchikage explained, "I can prove that Dead Ale is not God's organization's Ksitagarba, because when Ksitagarba appeared in the land of hot water, Dead Ale was in the village." 4 generations Kazekage questioned, "What can this prove?" Clay Clone has the ability to pass off the fake as the real one. 3 generations Tsuchikage said with certainty, "No, it was Dead Ale who was in the village at that time." The reason why Inoki was so sure is that practicing dust release requires one to try to fuse the 3 attributes of chakra in a body, and a mere clay clone can't do this. However, this involves the secret of Dedale's practice of dust release, so Inoki can't say it clearly. 3 generations Naruto looked at Dead Ale and asked the question that everyone was concerned about. "Dead Ale, have you mastered dust release?" Feeling everyone's gazes, Dead Ale had a gloomy expression. "That's right, I have indeed grasped dust evasion, but I'm not that damned Ksitagarba. I want to know who that damned Ksitagarba is more than all of you. If he falls into my hands, I'll definitely turn him into a big firework." Ever since he met Amatsukumi's Balrog, Dead Ale felt as if his fate was being controlled. Absurd coincidences came one after another, making him surprised and angry, but also helpless. After getting an affirmative answer from Dead Ale, 3 generations Naruto said, "Well, the topic about Ksitagarba ends here." After confirming that Dead Ale mastered dust release, everyone knew what was going on and no longer continued to interrogate Dead Ale. If Dead Ale really isn't Ksitagarba, then forcing him would be useless. And if Dead Ale is Ksitagarba, then forcing him would be useless. Soon, under the guidance of 3 generations Naruto, the focus of the 5 Kage's discussion shifted from Dead Ale to the encirclement and suppression of Danzo, as well as how to deal with the threat of the Akatsuki and how to protect the existing Jinchuriki. Because of the terrifying strength that Danzo showed, the 5 Kages temporarily suppressed their own selfishness and quickly finalized a joint plan to search for Danzo's whereabouts. At the same time, the investigation and countermeasures against the Akatsuki also became the focus of the discussion. However, because the strength of the Akatsuki's leader, Nagato, is too strong, even if the 5 Kage come together, it would still be difficult for them to deal with him. So this topic was stopped midway. Seeing that everyone was tired, 3 generations Naruto announced, "Let's end the discussion here for today. For the next few days, you can walk around Armai, rest, and wait for the latest information." The 4 generations of Kazekage suddenly said, "I heard that the ninja school of your village will hold an actual combat drill tomorrow, and the 9 Tails Jinchuriki and 7 Tails Jinchuriki will participate. Because the topic of protecting the existing Jinchuriki of the 5 great shinobi villages has been discussed before, the senior members of the 5 great shinobi villages present all know that the 7-tailed Jinchuriki of Takanobi village is in Mai." 3 generations Naruto smiled and nodded. "If you're interested, you can go and take a look. Here's the first update, asking for monthly votes." Chapter 683. Early in the morning, as soon as the refreshing first rays of the sun shone on the ground, the area outside the Forest of Death, which was usually quiet, became lively for some reason. Ninjas from various clans and ordinary villagers flocked to the area at the same time. Standing on the temporarily built high platform, Hyojin curled his lips. "Why are there so many people here to watch the fun?" With just a glance, Hyojin even saw a few peddlers pushing carts in the crowd. On the side, Jishui smiled and said, "Isn't it because of the assessment results publicity system formulated by Senpai Kuroto-san, which makes all the ninja clans in the village afraid that their children will be disgraced? So under the attention of all parties, the influence of our ninja school is getting bigger and bigger." Sometimes Jishui really admires Hyojin from the bottom of his heart, because no matter what Hyojin does, he can always play tricks. For example, after the implementation of the assessment results publicity system, the major ninja clans in the village either actively or passively paid attention to the ninja school. Because the results announced by the ninja school are too eye-catching, it's hard for the major ninja clans not to pay attention to it. After all, if their children make a fool of themselves in the rankings, the news will spread throughout the village in less than half a day. And my village is a real ninja village. Even ordinary villagers are inextricably linked with the major ninja clans in the village. So after several times, every assessment of the ninja school has attracted more and more attention from the villagers, and gradually it has become a very interesting activity for the villagers. After all, Maya's always had such a tradition. For example, Naruto's Chunin exam in the original time and space also sold tickets, making it like an entertainment activity. Seeing more and more villagers flocking here, the students participating in the assessment also became restless. Even Sasuke, Ningxi, and other outstanding geniuses were a little nervous under the public attention. "Father, why are you here?" "Mom, I'm here." "Oh no, my old man is also here." Soon, many students found their relatives in the crowd. Some students were surprised. It seems that they did not expect their relatives to come. Some students greeted their relatives happily. Sakura is also one of them. Looking at her parents waving to her outside the field, she held her forehead and said, "Why are they here? Don't give me so much pressure." Naruto put his hands on the back of his head and deliberately put on an indifferent expression. Parents are the most troublesome. Humph. The cool-looking Sasuke snorted lightly, as if he was very disdainful of Sakura's parents coming to cheer for them. However, he would occasionally glance at the sidelines from the corner of his eyes, revealing his true feelings. And when he saw his parents and his brother Itachi coming together, the corners of his mouth unconsciously raised high, and he secretly vowed in his heart, "Today, I must let everyone in the village understand the power of the Uchiha clan." On the other side, after seeing the figure of his father Richa and patriarch Hayashi coming together, Ningxi also secretly vowed in his heart that he must win back the glory for the Hyuga clan. Then, Ningxi subconsciously turned his head to look at Sasuke on the other side. For Ningxi, the biggest obstacle to winning this actual combat drill is Sasuke. Because he has the Byakugan, the probability of avoiding the instructor group is much higher than others, so the instructor group that is the most dangerous for other students is nothing for him. When Ningxi looked at Sasuke, Sasuke also happened to look at Ningxi, because for Sasuke, Ningxi is also his biggest obstacle to winning this actual combat drill. Looking at the confrontation between Ningxi and Sasuke, Tian, who was carrying a scroll bigger than her head, said to Ningxi, "Don't worry, we can win." Xiaoli on the side also nodded. "Ningxi, I will definitely not hold you back." Ningxi withdrew his gaze from Sasuke, looked at the two teammates beside him, and said solemnly, "This time, I'll leave it to you." Suddenly, there was a noise in the crowd on the sidelines, followed by cheers from far and near. Listening to the faint cheers in the distance, Ino asked with a puzzled look, "Is Naruto-sama here?" Denji, who was eating a potato chip, replied vaguely, "It seems so." Shikamaru shook his head and casually analyzed. "If only Naruto-sama is here, he shouldn't be so ostentatious. I guess it's likely that all 5 Kage are here." TSK. Is the village trying to use our actual combat drill to boost the morale of the 5 villages? The destruction of the Rock Village by the Akatsuki organization has greatly impacted the morale of the 5 villages. So this time in the village of Mai, the village didn't hide the fact that all 5 Kage, including the Tsuchikage, are currently in the village of Mai. And just as Shikamaru expected, the 5 Kage soon boarded the temporarily built high platform. Looking at the 5 ninjas on the high platform, standing at the pinnacle of the shinobi world. The trainees who were about to participate in the actual combat drill suddenly became excited, as if they were injected with chicken blood. Even Sasuke and Ningxi were no exception. All of them blushed. At this moment, they completely realized that this actual combat drill is completely different from the previous assessment. Once they get the first place in today's actual combat drill, then they can really make a name for their family in the shinobi world. With the arrival of all the high-level participants, Hyojin, as the principal of the ninja school, no longer delayed and directly said to the students on the high platform, "You should all be clear about the rules of this actual combat drill, so I won't be long-winded here. I just want to emphasize one point. Don't treat this drill as an ordinary ninja game. If you are not careful, you will really die." After saying that, Hyojin waved his hand. A group of staff members who had been waiting on the sidelines immediately led the student groups to different entrances. Watching the groups of students leave the venue under the leadership of the staff members, Kakashi moved closer to Hyojin's side and whispered, "What you just said can't be serious, right?" Hyojin smiled and said, "What do you think?" At this time, Jishue came over and said, "Senpai, Asuma, Senpai, and the others have arrived." Kakashi was startled and asked curiously, "Why did you call Asuma and the others?" Hyojin patted Kakashi's shoulder. "You will know in a moment." In the distance, Obsidian, wearing the vortex mask, stood on a tree branch and looked at the lively venue outside the Forest of Death. At this time, Zetsu suddenly poked half of his body out of the tree trunk and said, "I still can't find Dead Ale. He should be hidden by my..." Second update, asking for monthly votes. Chapter 684. Seeing Obsidian silently looking at the death forest in the distance, Zetsu also looked at him and jokingly said, "Your informant seems to be very interested in the ninja school. I heard that after he took office, he carried out many reforms in Mai's ninja school, and this actual combat drill seems to be promoted by him. It seems that he wants to train these kids to fight against us." The Obito showed a look of disdain. Kuroto is still as naive as ever. No matter how much he trains these little brats, what use can they have? The future of the shinobi world is already doomed. Zetsu suddenly said, "I heard that Mai's Nine-Tails Jinchuriki will also participate in this actual combat drill. Maybe we can take this opportunity to kidnap the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki." The Obito hesitated for a moment. Rock Village has just been destroyed by us, and Konoha is holding such a high-profile event, and they even let the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki participate. Don't you think it's strange? Zetsu turned his head and looked at Obsidian. "Are you worried that this is a trap set by Tsukumi? We can't ignore this possibility." After a pause, Obsidian explained, "When Nagato was defeated by Tsukumi's Yama, you were also there. The strength of the other party is not something that the two of us can resist." Recalling the previous battle between Nagato and Yama, Zetsu suddenly felt a lingering fear. Well, that monster Yama can summon meteorites at will. Even the Outer Path Demon statue couldn't resist it. The injuries that Nagato suffered in that battle have not completely healed up until now. If we meet him, I'm afraid that we will be in big trouble. The meteorite attack launched by Otsutsuki Samurai on the moon with the help of the giant Tenseigan has always been attributed to Hyojin by Akatsuki. So everyone in Akatsuki, including their leader Nagato, is very afraid of Yama. It was also because of the meteorite attack that the leader Nagato was seriously injured, which forced the Akatsuki to lay dormant for so long. Even now, Nagato hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. Obsidian continued, "You don't have to worry too much. Yama didn't chase us last time, which means that he is also afraid of Nagato. Now that we have captured the fourth-tailed and the five-tailed, as long as the Sasori transformation plan is successful, Yama will no longer be the strongest in the shinobi world, and our plan could be pushed forward again." Ju asked with some pity. After entering the Forest of Death, there are only two brats of the same age beside Nine-Tails' Jinchuriki. It's a pity to let go of this opportunity. After weighing the pros and cons, Obsidian, who was quite confident in his ability to escape, said, Then let's go and take a look. If there's really a chance, we'll make a move. On the field outside the Forest of Death, a number of surveillance screens were quickly set up. Since the Nine-Tails' Jinchuriki and the Seven-Tailed Jinchuriki are participating in the actual combat drill at the same time, Hyojin naturally has to ensure their safety, and these hundreds of surveillance cameras arranged in the Forest of Death are part of the safety protection. These surveillance cameras can not only monitor the vast majority of the areas in the Forest of Death, but also provide live footage of the actual combat drill for the 5 Kage, as well as the villagers. The only drawback is that it costs a lot of money, but the actual combat drill this time was approved by the village's high-level meeting, so all the expenses will be borne by the village. Hyojin doesn't have to worry about it. In addition to these surveillance cameras, many important nodes in the Forest of Death are also guarded by the Umbu Squad, which can reach any area in the Forest of Death within 3 minutes. Moreover, Kakashi has also arranged the Flying Thunder God Jutsu on Naruto and Fu. As long as there is an accident, Kakashi can instantly transfer these 2 important Jinchuriki away. Walking down the high platform, Hyojin came in front of Asuma, Red, Gale, and Quiet. In addition to Asuma, Red and the other 2 were specially invited by Hyojin, and Asuma also came along when he heard that Red was coming. After throwing 4 sets of Akatsuki's Red Cloud uniforms to the 4 people in front of him, Hyojin said, "Put them on." After receiving the Akatsuki's Red Cloud uniforms, Asuma was confused. "Kuroto-san, what are you doing?" "Ahem," after coughing twice, Gale asked. "Kuroto-san, you don't want us to pretend to be Akatsuki members to scare those children, do you?" Hyojin smiled. "Yes." Red frowned and said, "Kuroto-san, you are playing too big. They're just a group of children. They haven't even graduated from the shinobi school, and they're not even genin. You have already crossed the line by arranging a team of chunin as instructors, and now you want us jonin to do it? Isn't this deliberately discouraging those children? Don't forget that the 5 Kages are watching." There is no doubt that Red is thinking for Hyojin's sake. Making the children make a fool of themselves on such an occasion is undoubtedly an embarrassment to the major clans behind these children. Hyojin glanced at Asuma and said lightly, "I'm not afraid of offending people, are you?" In front of Red, Asuma immediately said, "Are you kidding me? I have nothing to be afraid of." Hyojin patted Asuma's shoulder with satisfaction. "As expected of a member of the Azuma family, you are very tough." "You?" After sighing speechlessly, Red said, "Forget it. One of you is the son of a noble family, and the other is the son of Naruto. I am too lazy to talk to you." Seeing that Red also agreed, Gale hurriedly said, "Kuroto-san, what exactly are we going to do?" Hyojin handed over the information of the 12 roaches of Mai, and Yakumo, Sakai's group, and Takanobu's group, a total of 6 groups, and then ordered, "You don't need to worry about anything else, just keep an eye on these 6 groups. Make them mistakenly think that you are the real members of the Akatsuki. Let them feel the pressure of death." Asuma said with some uneasiness, "There are 9-tails Jinchuriki here. If he suddenly loses control, what should we do?" Currently, only a few high-level members of Mai know about the Jinchuriki of the 7 tails, as well as a few high-level members of the 5 great shinobi villages who have participated in the Gakage assembly. So Asuma doesn't know that Fu is a Jinchuriki of the 7 tails. At this time, Jishuei, who has been standing beside Hyojin without saying a word, stood up and said with a smile, "If Naruto goes berserk, I will deal with it. Please don't worry, Asuma-san." Asuma was still a little uneasy. These children are the children of the strongest shinobi clan in the village, and there are also geniuses of your Hyuga clan among them. Is it really necessary to go to this extent? Hyojin said calmly, "If you think of them as children, then they will always be children. I want them to know what they will face in the future. I also want them to understand that death is always around them. It has never left." Third, I want to ask for monthly votes. Chapter 685. Looking up and down at Asuma, Kurenai, Sasuke, and Kurenai, Hyojin smiled and immediately took out 4 gray masks and threw them over. Put them on. Asma muttered. I remember that only members of Amitsukami wear masks, but the people of Akatsuki don't seem to wear masks. Hyojin curled his lips. Don't worry about these details. As long as your performance is strong and ruthless enough, are you afraid that you won't be able to deceive those kids? Kurenai, who has a good relationship with the Hyuga clan, said, Ningxi has the Byakugan. Even if he wears a mask, he will still be exposed. At this time, Jishue explained to the others, the masks in your hands have been personally processed by the headmaster. There is a special sealing technique engraved inside, which can block the vision of the Byakugan ninja. What? The others were taken aback. Kurenai looked at the mask in her hand seriously and said, Then, isn't this mask similar to the masks of Amitsukami? Hyojin said casually, I don't know how the masks of Amitsukami are made, but anyway, it's not too difficult to block the vision of the Byakugan ninja. Asma glanced at Hyojin. I didn't expect you to have such a high level of attainment in sealing techniques. Hyojin changed the topic and continued. I have already reported your existence to the village, and the Umbu stationed in the Forest of Death also know about it. Only the student group and the instructor group who participated in the actual combat drill don't know about it. Kurenai was taken aback. What? You don't even know about the instructor group? Of course. After a pause, Hyojin continued. The instructor group that I arranged was originally given to you to deal with. Only by dealing with the instructor group in front of the students will the students quickly believe that you are the real members of Akatsuki. At that time, we will be able to see whether the students who are in a desperate situation can face everything like a ninja. Kurenai opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say, and finally said, Kuroto, being your student is really unlucky. Asma and the others nodded in agreement. In the Forest of Death, the Ino Shika child's team was quickly traversing through the dense forest. The three of them had never had such a serious expression on their faces. Even the usually undisciplined Shikamaru was no exception. After a while, the three of them stopped under a big tree. Ino panted as he asked, Shikamaru, what should we do next? Shikamaru took out a map from a ninja bag on his waist and spread it on the ground. Then he squatted beside the map and said, We entered the Forest of Death from the third entrance of Area B. Sasuke's team is in Area A, and Ningxi's team is in Area C. So, Sasuke's team should be on our left, and Ningxi's team should be on our right. Ino also understood that they must avoid Sasuke's and Ningxi's teams, as well as the instructor's team. So he said, Then we can only go straight forward? Shikamaru shook his head. No, we won't move. We'll just hide here. Oh, why? Shikamaru said, In terms of probability, as long as we ensure that we don't lose our 3 item scrolls, it's impossible for us to be at the bottom, and we don't have the confidence to defeat Sasuke and Ningxi. So to ensure that we don't lose our item scrolls and end this exercise in the middle is the safest plan. Dingxi nodded. My father also told me in the morning that I can't be eliminated too early. Ino also echoed. Well, that's what my father told me. Shikamaru smiled and said, Then it's decided. Anyway, this actual combat exercise is not our stage. Sasuke and Ningxi are the protagonists. As Shikamaru expected, after the actual combat exercise officially began, Sasuke and Ningxi's teams began their respective hunting. The other student teams had no chance of winning in front of them. In less than an hour, they defeated several teams in succession and won a lot of item scrolls. In the venue outside the Forest of Death, looking at the monitor screen, Sasuke once again easily defeated his opponent and won another item scroll. 4 generations of Kazekage on the high platform couldn't help but sigh, as expected of the Sharingan Uchiha clan. 3 generations Tsuchikage said, The kid with the Byakugan is also very good. His physical skills are clean and neat, and he's very experienced. He doesn't look like someone his age should have. 4 generations of Laying asked at this time, The yellow-haired kid next to Uchiha, is he 9 Tails' Jinchuriki? 3 generations of Naruto smoked his pipe and nodded. Look, that team is the instructor team, right? They seem to be rushing towards the Uchiha clan's kid. There's a good show to watch. At this time, There was a burst of exclamation from the crowd in the venue because the figure of the instructor team appeared on the monitor screen. And judging from the route, they were going straight to Sasuke's team. In the Forest of Death. After throwing another item scroll to Sakura, Sasuke asked, "How many scrolls have we got?" Sakura replied happily, "Including our own, there are already 7. "Sasuke, you're really the strongest." Naruto muttered, "Sakura, I also contributed just now." Sakura directly ignored Naruto, went to Sasuke's side, and handed over the water bottle. "Sasuke, drink some water." Just as Sasuke was about to take the water bottle from Sakura, there was a sound of wind breaking. Then, 4 figures landed in front of Sasuke and the others. The instructor team, after seeing who it was, not only was Sasuke not afraid, but the corners of his mouth cracked open, and his eyes turned scarlet in an instant. Shuemu from the instructor team said, "Sasuke, hand over a scroll and run." Sakura subconsciously wanted a hand over an item scroll. In her mind, since she was caught by the instructor group of 4 Chunin, there was no point in resisting. Instead of wasting her chakra or getting injured, it was better to listen to Mizuki-sensei's words and hand over an item scroll, which was more cost-effective. At this time, Sasuke reached out to stop Sakura and said coldly, "Run? Are you kidding me?" Irika frowned. "Sasuke, if you get injured now, it will affect your entire performance." Sasuke curled his lips and said, "Teacher Irika, it's not certain who will win and who will lose." Iron Steel chuckled. "Are the younger generation so arrogant nowadays?" Shinyu Izumo said with a straight face. "In that case, let these kids use their bodies to feel what it means to be a Chunin." Not far away, after gently pushing aside the grass, Tion looked shocked. Are Sasuke and the others crazy? They actually want to fight with the instructor team when they have extra scrolls. Ningxi, who had activated the Bikugan, said, "If it were me, I wouldn't hand over any scrolls so easily." Tion was speechless. You geniuses are really hard to understand. Chapter 686. There are only 2 days left in this month, and I'm still quite far away from my goal of being in the top 5 of the monthly votes. The few big shots in front of me are getting stronger and stronger. Although I'm a salted fish, I also want to be a salted fish with a dream. Please support me, everyone. If I don't vote for the monthly votes today and tomorrow, it'll be a waste. So please remember to vote. Thank you. The 4th chapter of Naruto's World in the Eyes of Reincarnation has been updated, asking for monthly votes. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 687. Seeing that Sasuke on the monitor actually took a fighting posture against the Chunin instructor group, countless exclamations immediately came out in the huge venue. There is no doubt that a 10-year-old child did not flinch in the face of 4 Chunin. This alone is enough to be praised. Also in the venue, Sasuke's mother, Uchiha Mikoto, stared at the monitor and complained softly, "This child is really too much." Itachi smiled on the side. It is indeed a bit difficult. Itachi still knows the strength of Sasuke. It is not a big problem to deal with a Chunin, but if he wants to deal with 4 Chunin at the same time, the result is very difficult to predict. As his father, Fuyue raised the corner of his mouth, he was very satisfied that Sasuke dared to fight against the instructor group. In his opinion, Uchiha should be like this. On the high platform, 4 generations Liang said in a muffled voice, "I thought that this actual combat drill is just a ninja game for kids. I didn't expect it to be more exciting than I expected." Through the monitors densely scattered throughout the Death Forest, the people in the venue could not only see the confrontation between Sasuke and the instructor group, but also found that near the confrontation area, several student groups, including Ningxi's group, were hiding. Some of these student groups were lurking in the blind spot far away, observing Sasuke's battlefield through pupil techniques. Some were hiding nearby using Jinjutsu, and some were flying in the air, using high-altitude vision to spy on Sasuke's battlefield. They didn't scatter because of the appearance of the instructor group, but they used their own magic, hiding nearby, looking for opportunities to attack like real ninjas. 3 generations Tsukuha looked at the scene on the monitor with a serious expression on his face and sighed with emotion. The younger generation will surpass the older, although, because of the existence of the Akatsuki organization, the 5 great shinobi villages have changed from the previous confrontation to the current alliance. But the internal competition between the 5 great shinobi villages still exists, so when he saw so many outstanding talents emerging from Konoha, Tsuchikage, who just lost the rock village, inevitably felt a little sour in his heart. As the host, Naruto smiled and said, "Sasuke is still a little immature. It is not a wise choice to fight with the instructor group at this time." In the fight with the instructor group, regardless of victory or defeat, Sasuke will become the prey of the other student groups hiding nearby, and if he is not careful, he may lose the lead. Death Forest. Sakura, Naruto, you are not their opponent, retreat. Sasuke twisted his neck, and the single Magatama rotated rapidly in his scarlet eyes. Obviously, he not only wants to fight with the instructor group, but also intends to challenge the 4 Chunin ninjas of the instructor group alone. Naruto quickly said, "Hey, what do you mean? Don't forget that we are a team. If we're going to fight, of course, we will fight together." Sakura looked nervous. "Sasuke, is it really okay for us to do this? The opponent is Teacher Irika and the others. Why don't we hand over an item scroll?" At this time, Irika on the opposite side said seriously, "Sasuke, you are indeed the best of all the students I have ever seen, but arrogance is not a good habit. Let's save the lesson for later. Teacher Irika." Sasuke grinned, revealing a sly smile. Irika frowned and was about to persuade him again, but he found that Sasuke's hands suddenly pulled out from the ninja bag and then threw several shurikens towards his side. Swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, the sound of shurikens breaking through the air sounded in the forest. As Sasuke took the initiative to attack, the battle between the students and the instructor group broke out. As Chunin ninjas, the 4 instructor group easily dodged the shurikens thrown by Sasuke without warning each other. However, when the shurikens brushed past them, they saw that these shurikens were tied with special steel wires that were not reflective, and there were small balls tied to the end of the steel wires. What is this? In an instant, the eyes of Irika and the others were attracted by the small balls tied to the end of the steel wires. Bang, bang, bang. Before they could determine the use of these small balls, the small balls exploded one by one, like a smoke bomb, instantly creating a large cloud of smoke on the battlefield. Swoosh! Almost at the moment when the smoke surged, a figure flashed into the smoke and pounced on the 4 instructor group members who were trapped in the smoke. Soon, a dense sound of fists and feet came from the smoke. Listening to the sound of fists and feet constantly echoing in his ears, Naruto reacted and wondered, has the battle already started? Looking at the smoke in front of her, Sakura said uncertainly, "It seems so." In the grass in the distance, Xiaoli covered her mouth and whispered, "Sasuke's speed is so fast." Ningxi, who activated the Byakugan, did not say anything, but stared at the fierce battle in the distance. The expression on his face gradually became serious. On the other side, Zen, who was hiding behind a big tree and covered by the illusion, muttered, "Why does it look like Sasuke has the upper hand?" Yakumo, who was maintaining the Jinjutsu, also had some doubts. Maybe the teachers didn't use their full strength. They are all Chunin, so they shouldn't be defeated by Sasuke alone. Sai silently drew an ink bird on the scroll so that he could retreat when the situation was not good. In the air, Fu borrowed a bit of her 7 tails power and flew to the crown of a tree. She rested her chin on her hands and looked at the fierce battle not far away. "The instructors aren't as strong as I thought," she muttered. In a secret monitoring room in the Forest of Death, Asuma, who had changed into the Akatsuki uniform, stared at the monitor screen in front of him and said, "No way. For Chunin were dragged into a stalemate by a 10-year-old child?" Kurenai was also speechless. It seems that we have to appear early. She thought that they would have to wait until at least noon, or even at night, for the instructor group to teach the kids a good lesson. Then they would have the opportunity to appear. She never thought that the instructor group would meet a tough opponent as soon as they appeared. Gale said, "This Uchiha Sasuke is really strong." Shien agreed. While his throwing skills are very high, his physical skills are not bad, and his tactical qualities are first class. He is really a genius of the Uchiha clan. Asuma put on his mask with a smile and said, "Well, let's go. If the instructor team is defeated by a kid, they will be embarrassed in the village in the future. So let's go and help them. At least they won't lose too much face if they are defeated by us." First update. Ask for monthly votes. Chapter 688. After Asuma's team moved, their figures immediately appeared on the monitoring screens in the venue. Who are those people? Akatsuki. Akatsuki? How did they sneak in here? In an instant, a wave of clamor broke out in the hall. Cries of alarm, warnings, and even curses rose and fell in succession. Uchiha Makoto, who was watching the fierce battle between Sasuke and the instructor group, also noticed Asuma's team disguised as members of Akatsuki and immediately exclaimed, "Not good! They are coming for Sasuke!" Fuyue also frowned, but after all, he is the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, so he didn't panic too much. Instead, he first looked at the 5 Kage on the high platform not far away. Seeing no movement from the 5 Kage, he asked Itachi, "What's going on?" Itachi quickly explained, "Father, Mother, please don't worry. Brother Jishue told me that this is also the arrangement of the ninja school. The team wearing the Akatsuki Red Cloud uniform are all jonins from village." Uchiha Makoto breathed a long sigh of relief. "I was scared to death." At this time, the staff in the venue also began to announce the truth to the villagers. After learning that the Akatsuki members wearing gray masks in the Forest of Death were all jonins from the village in disguise, and their purpose was to test the students' ability to deal with desperate situations, the villagers were surprised, praised, cheered, worried, and various other emotions. Listening to the noise in the ears, Uchiha Makoto began to worry. Jishue's team is too reckless. Itachi explained. The school also hopes to train the students' ability to respond when they encounter a strong enemy through this actual combat drill. After all, only by creating a situation that is close to a real desperate situation can we test whether the students can make the correct response in a desperate situation. Uchiha Makoto was still worried and asked Fuyue, "Sasuke should be okay, right?" Fuyue crossed his arms in front of his chest and didn't answer. Obviously, this arrangement of the ninja school is completely beyond his expectation. Now he can't say whether Sasuke can deal with this situation or not. All the major clans in the venue have the same mood as Fuyue at this moment. They didn't expect that the ninja school would play such a big game, so all of them are worried that their children will be humiliated in public. On the high platform, 3 generations Tsukuha glanced at Naruto 3 generations and said, "Sending people to disguise as Akatsuki, only your might can come up with such an idea." 4 generations Lang smiled and said, "I really want to see how these kids will react now." 4 generations of Kazekage showed a thoughtful expression. Compared with other villages, the Sand Crypsis is the most serious, so he seems to want to learn from Mai's method of training talents. 3 generations Naruto squeezed out a smile. 3 generations Naruto didn't know about this arrangement of the ninja school before. Hyojin almost hid it from everyone. After the actual combat exercise officially began, he quietly reported it to 3 generations Naruto. At that time, the personnel have already been arranged. His son Asuma was among the impersonators, so although it was a bit inappropriate, 3 generations Naruto couldn't stop it. In the Death Forest, looking at Asuma and the other 3 who were wearing the Akatsuki Red Cloud suit not far away, Obsidian and Zetsu, who were hiding in the blind spot of the monitor, looked at each other. After a while, Obsidian asked, did Nagato also send people?" Zetsu was confused. "No, You should be busy dealing with the Jinchuriki right now, right? Obsidian asked again. Then who are those guys wearing the gray mask and the Akatsuki red cloud suit? Zetsu shrugged his shoulders. I haven't seen them, but they are definitely not our people. The our Zetsu is referring to is not Akatsuki, but the Obsidian faction in Akatsuki. Today, there are still two factions in Akatsuki, Kazu Sasori and Bipa Juzo, who were recruited by Nagato and Konan, belong to the Nagato faction, while Shinichi and the Mist Squad, who were recruited by the Obsidian, belong to the Obsidian faction. But also because of the external pressure from Amatsukami, these two factions are now getting along quite well. Obsidian pondered for a while and said, Let's go. Let's follow them and take a look. On the battlefield on Sasuke's side, the smoke gradually dissipated, revealing several figures intertwined with each other. Sasuke, who has activated his Sharingan, dodged left and right, appearing to be at ease under the siege of Fortunen. He was holding the kunai in his left hand, while his right hand and mouth were pulling and biting several pieces of steel wire. The other end of the steel wire was tied to a shuriken that was flying up and down. As if it had a mind of its own, it could always attack the several chunin of the instructor group from strange angles, causing them to be annoyed. Damn it! Mizuki cursed and immediately shot a few shurikens at Sasuke. Sasuke subconsciously wanted to dodge, but as soon as he jumped up, something seemed to grab him from under his feet and pulled him back to the ground. In desperation, Sasuke had to use the kunai in his hand to block the incoming shurikens, while using the corner of his eyes to look at his feet. Glue! Only then did he discover that his feet were covered with a transparent glue-like substance. And it was this glue that pulled him back to the ground just now. There is no doubt that this is Kamikaze Izumo's unique water release ninjutsu, Water Taste Takahara. Once it is used, it can quietly cover the entire battlefield with glue, and if the enemy is not aware of it in time, they will immediately be trapped by the glue and unable to move. Izumo, good job. Tetsuya smiled and immediately shouted, Psychic Jutsu! Bang! In a burst of white smoke, a strange shell-like sledgehammer was summoned by Tetsuya. Soon, Tetsuya flew up and swung the sledgehammer in his hand at Sasuke, who was bound by the glue. Not far away, Sakura was shocked and scared when she saw this scene, and quickly shouted, Sasuke, be careful! Naruto also rushed over, wanted to save Sasuke. Boom! Before Sakura finished speaking, Tetsuya's sledgehammer hit Sasuke's body. Perhaps he wanted to teach Sasuke a lesson, but Tetsuya's attack was not weak. Although he avoided Sasuke's vital parts, if he was hit by this attack, Sasuke would definitely be injured and have to withdraw from today's actual combat practice. However, what was reflected in everyone's practice was not Sasuke, who was sent flying, but a white smoke. Tetsuya was stunned. Shadow clone technique? At this moment, Sasuke, who had released chakra and stepped on the glue, suddenly appeared behind Tetsuya, pressed the kunai in his hand against the back of Tetsuya's neck, and said with a smile, Sensei, don't look down on me. I'm asking for monthly votes. Chapter 689. In the bushes. Looking at Sasuke's wonderful performance in the distance, Xiaoli was dumbfounded. This is too exaggerated. I can't believe Sasuke is in the same class as us. Tian was also surprised. The one who fought against 4 people in the thick smoke was just a shadow clone. When did Sasuke make his move? I didn't notice it at all. Still staring at the battlefield in the distance, Ningxi explained in a deep voice. When he broke into the thick smoke, he used the smoke as a cover to launch the shadow clone jutsu. Tian was relieved. No wonder I didn't notice it, Xiaoli said. Using the shuriken to create smoke, and then using the smoke as a cover to launch the shadow clone jutsu. Sasuke's tactical ability is very strong. Ningxi said plainly, this is very normal when I don't know what ninjutsu the sensei is good at. If it was me, I would also choose to use the shadow clone to test it out. Tian was speechless. This is very abnormal, okay? Not everyone can use the shadow clone jutsu like Sasuke, If it was me and Xiaoli just now, we would have been hit by Sensei's big hammer. Xiaoli quickly nodded. A rare smile appeared on Ningxi's serious face, because he thought that if he was in Sasuke's position just now, even if it wasn't the shadow clone, he would still have the means to resist the attack of Steel Iron Sledgehammer. This method was the secret technique of soft fist, revolving heaven that he had just mastered in the past few days. Ever since he lost to Sasuke during the physical technique assessment, he had been brooding over it and hadn't been able to relax for even a moment. Now that he had mastered the secret technique of revolving heaven, which could be called the absolute defense of soft fists, he had the confidence to defeat Sasuke in today's battle practice. On the battlefield, Sasuke, who was using his kunai to press against the back of Steel Iron's neck, laughed. "Sensei, if you lost, shouldn't you also lose a prop scroll to me?" "TSK, brat." Gongzi Tai spat, and with a bang, his whole body turned into a cloud of white smoke. Sasuke frowned. Shadow clone? At this time, Gang Zidi's real body walked out from behind a big tree not far away. With a wave of his hand, his shell-shaped sledgehammer immediately changed its shape and flew back to his real body's hand like a dart. Iron Steel gnashed his teeth. "Brat, don't look down on us teachers." Sasuke's eyes sank, and he used the Sharingan in his eye socket to look at the 4 teachers who were scattered in 4 directions and faintly surrounding him. Through the exchange, just now, he had already realized that if he were to fight one-on-one, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone in the instructor group. However, if he were to fight 1 against 4, it would be a little difficult, and this was under the condition that the instructor group had shown mercy. If the 4 Chunin ninjas from the instructor group fought like they were on a real battlefield, then the pressure on him would be even greater. Sure enough, it's still too difficult. Glancing at his 2 teammates, Naruto and Sakura, who were not far away, Sasuke secretly curled his lips. It's a pity that Naruto and Sakura are trash that will drag us down. If it was Ningxi, it wouldn't be difficult for the 2 of us to defeat the instructor group. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Just as Sasuke was thinking about how to escape from the instructor group, there was a sound of wind breaking without warning. Then, 3 figures suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Sasuke's pupils shrank. "Akatsuki? How is this possible?" The 4 Chunin ninjas from the instructor group were also shocked. Not far away, Naruto and Sakura were so scared that they sat on the ground. When they saw the 3 figures that suddenly appeared, all of them were wearing the Akatsuki's iconic red cloud uniform. Whether it was Sasuke's team or the instructor group composed of 4 Chunin, all of them were shocked and lost their sense of propriety. The prestige of the Akatsuki organization that has destroyed the 2 great shinobi villages of Mai and Rock Village is not a joke. In today's shinobi world, it can even be said that the name Akatsuki has reached the point where the name Akatsuki is feared. Tetsuya shouted loudly, "Damn it! What do you want to do by sneaking into the village?" Kamizuki Izumo said fiercely, "No matter what these guys want to do, they won't succeed. The 5 Kage are in the village, and none of you will be able to escape today." At this time, Irika directly rushed to Sasuke's side and hurriedly ordered, "Today's actual combat drill is over. Sasuke, quickly take Naruto and Sakura away from here. We will hold these guys back." "Hold us back? Hey, with just a few of you?" Asma, wearing a gray mask and a red cloud uniform, according to Hyujin's request, seriously played the role of a member of the Akatsuki organization. Irika clenched the kunai in his hand and shouted, "Sasuke, what are you waiting for? Quickly take Naruto and Sakura and escape." Looking at the panicked instructor group, Sasuke realized that everything in front of him was not an illusion, but an accident that really happened. In what he thought was just a show, the Akatsuki organization really appeared. "If I don't escape, I will really die here." Just for a moment, this thought flashed in Sasuke's mind. But just when he wanted to abandon the instructor group and turn around to escape, he doesn't know why, but his legs were a little soft, and his body began to tremble, faintly unable to exert any strength. Is this the real battlefield? I'm timid. After realizing that his body instinctively reacted because of fear, Sasuke was shocked and angry. He always thought that he was already a ninja who could take charge of things alone, but now he realized that he was not ready to face death. At this moment, Red, who was also wearing a gray mask and a red cloud uniform, quickly made a hand seal and launched a genjutsu. Bang bang. With two muffled sounds, the two Chunin ninjas, Tetsuya and Kamizuki Izumo, fainted on the ground. Compared with Itachi and Jishue, who have Manjikyu Sharingan, Red's genjutsu is indeed inferior. But in front of ordinary ninjas, Red, who specializes in genjutsu, is a rare master of genjutsu. Therefore, Red easily subdued Tetsuya and Kamizuki Izumo with a genjutsu. Run! Finally, after shouting to Sasuke, Iruka rushed to Asuma. However, as a Chunin, Iruka was no match for the Jonin Asuma. Even if Asuma held back, he still defeated Iruka in a few moves. Seeing that the rest of the instructor group had been taken care of, Shuemu swallowed and directly left Sasuke's team of students, fleeing out of the forest of death without looking back. Bang! However, as soon as Shuemu jumped up, he was knocked down from the air by a transparent figure and fell to the ground. Then, the transparent figure also revealed itself. Just like the three people who appeared before, he was also wearing a gray mask and a red cloud uniform from the Akatsuki organization. In the blink of an eye, the instructor group was taken care of in front of him. On the battlefield, Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura were all stunned, not knowing what to do. First chapter, asking for monthly votes. Chapter 690. In the venue, Mikoto Uchiha, who was staring at the monitor, said with a distressed expression, "Oh no, Sasuke is scared." As Sasuke's mother, she knows Sasuke better than anyone. When the Asuma squad, disguised as the Akatsuki organization, appeared, even if there was no sound on the monitor, she could still feel the fear and helplessness in Sasuke's heart. Fuyue also narrowed his eyes slightly. He can also see that Sasuke is afraid. The picture on the monitor is not very clear, so Sasuke's body trembling slightly due to fear is not very conspicuous in the picture. But this can only fool the ordinary audience in the venue, not Fuyue, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan. But he doesn't feel that there is anything wrong with this, because even he, the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, if suddenly encountered several members of the Akatsuki organization, he would also be nervous, not to mention a child who hasn't even graduated from a ninja school. What he really cares about is whether his son can break free from this fear. Compared to his mother's worries and his father's expectations, Itachi, as the older brother, is very calm. He doesn't demand anything from Sasuke. In his opinion, Sasuke is already excellent enough. On the high platform of the venue, the five Kages who were leaning on the bench watching the monitor unconsciously leaned forward slightly at this moment, focusing their attention on the Uchiha Sasuke, who is facing the members of the Akatsuki organization. From the beginning of today's actual combat drill until now, even from the perspective of the five Kages, Uchiha Sasuke's performance can be said to be impeccable. It is almost foreseeable that as long as Sasuke can grow up smoothly, he will definitely become another famous Uchiha expert in the shinobi world, and the more so, the more the five Kages look forward to the young Sasuke's performance in the face of a desperate situation. One must know that just now, even a Chunin in the teacher group couldn't withstand the power of the members of the Akatsuki organization and chose to abandon the students in fear and escape. For generations of Kazekage smiled and said, "Do you think he will retreat?" 3 generations of Tsukuha said with a serious face. His response at this time will determine his future achievements. We will soon know whether he has the potential to become a real strong person or not. Sandaime Hokage's face was a little gloomy. Mizuki's despicable act of abandoning his students and running away without a fight made him feel a little embarrassed in front of the other Hokage. Such a weak guy is not suitable to teach students in the ninja school. When today is over, I must transfer him out of the ninja school. In the Death Forest. Next to a depression a dozen miles away from Sasuke's battlefield, you said to Hinata and Shina with a smile, "Hey, before the actual combat exercise, I have secretly let Akamaru remember the smell of Sasuke and Ningxi. So as long as I am here, our team will not be caught by those two monsters. Woof! Akamaru, who was squatting on the side, also barked. Hinata breathed a sigh of relief when she heard this. As the eldest daughter of the Hyuga clan, this actual combat exercise really put a lot of pressure on her. She was really worried that she would be the first to be eliminated and lose the face of the Hyuga clan. Shina asked, "So where are Sasuke and Ningxi now?" You looked directly at Akamaru. Akamaru sniffed and then pointed in a direction. You was puzzled. They are in the same group? It can't be, right? Those two monsters are already fighting each other. Shina pondered for a moment and said, "This may be our chance." You immediately reacted, "Yes, if Sasuke and Ningxi fight and both of them are injured, then we have a chance to win the first place in this actual combat exercise." After saying that, Ye ignored Shina and Hinata in his group and rushed in the direction of Sasuke and Ningxi. Shina and Hinata could only helplessly look at each other and then followed. On Sasuke's battlefield, Tian, who was hiding in the grass in the distance, asked Ningxi with her teeth chattering, "Ningxi, that they don't seem to have found us yet. Should we escape?" Ningxi was confused. The sudden appearance of the Akatsuki members also scared him. But seeing that Sasuke and the others were blocked by the Akatsuki members, he really couldn't bear to abandon Sasuke and the others and escape. Similarly, Ziyuan's group, who was hiding not far away, was also in a dilemma. Tightly holding the little bell that sealed her witch power, Ziyuan stuttered and asked, "What should we do?" Yakumo was not much better than Ziyuan, not to mention coming up with ideas. Even Chakra, who was maintaining the illusion, began to fluctuate, revealing her inner panic. Sakai, who had stayed in the route for a while, was obviously calmer. He quickly drew a few vivid mice on the scroll, and then made a hand seal to activate the fake Super Beast painting. In an instant, the mice in the ink painting came out of the scroll as if they were alive and surrounded Sakai, squeaking. Ziyuan curiously asked, "What are you going to do?" Sakai said, "Of course, I'm going to spread the news. The Akatsuki definitely didn't sneak into the village just to deal with us ninja school students. So we must inform the village about the infiltration of the Akatsuki members as soon as possible." After saying that, Sakai ordered the mice to scatter and disappear into the grass. On the other side, Fu, who was hiding on the top of the tree, saw that Asuma and the others were disguised as members of the Akatsuki. She immediately wanted to escape, but thinking that the teacher group was completely destroyed and Sasuke's group was blocked by the Akatsuki members, she suppressed the fear in her heart and hid in the dense canopy while observing the battlefield, looking for a chance to help. On the battlefield, facing the indifferent eyes of the four Akatsuki members in front of him, Sasuke could even hear his heart pounding. "If I resist, I will die. I will die." A voice kept shouting in Sasuke's heart, telling him to choose to retreat, to choose to surrender. After all, he had the experience of being kidnapped by the Akatsuki. As long as he doesn't resist, there's a high probability that he can survive. "No, brother, father, and mother are watching me. As Uchiha, how can I just surrender and humiliate the family's prestige?" Just when Sasuke was about to surrender under the gaze of the four Akatsuki members, he suddenly realized a key problem. That is, his brother and parents are watching him. In Sasuke's heart, compared to the disappointment of his brother and parents, compared to the glory of the family, death is nothing. So, from his throat came out a roar. "Naruto, quickly take Sakura and run. I will stop them." Second update. Chapter 691. Naruto, take Sakura and run. I will stop them. After roaring out from his chest, Sasuke suddenly felt a sense of relief that he had never felt before. And at the same time, the fear that filled his body also receded like the tide. At this moment, Sasuke's face no longer had any fear and hesitation. Instead, it was replaced with a fighting spirit. Asuma and the others who were pretending to be members of the Akatsuki not only felt the change in Sasuke's temperament, but also discovered that Sasuke's single Sharingan has turned into double Sharingan. His Sharingan has evolved? Asuma and the others looked at each other in dismay. They didn't expect that just by listening to Hyojin's ridiculous arrangement. Uchiha and Sasuke's Sharingan had evolved from single Sharingan to double Sharingan, so they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts that this little brat from the Uchiha family is really not simple. At this time, Sasuke, who was ready to fight the Akatsuki alone, was surprised to find that Naruto and Sakura, whom he had always regarded as a burden, didn't run away. Instead, they stood side by side with him. "You too." Looking at Naruto, who had a layer of cold sweat on his forehead, and Sakura, who was trembling in fear, Sasuke felt an inexplicable warmth in his heart. Naruto swallowed his saliva with difficulty. "Sasuke, we are a team. How can we watch you die alone?" Sakura also nodded. "You two idiots, even if you stay, you won't be of any help." After cursing, Sasuke continued, "Don't worry. There are surveillance cameras everywhere in the Death Forest. The Akatsuki organization must have already been discovered by the village. As long as we hold on for a while, the village's reinforcements will arrive soon." There were cameras everywhere in the Forest of Death. Although they were camouflaged, they couldn't hide from Sasuke, who had Sharingan. Therefore, he firmly believed that the village's reinforcements were already on their way, and his father and brother must be on their way. "Great!" Naruto and Sakura cheered. Asuma snorted coldly. "How long can you kids last? 2 minutes? Or 3 minutes?" Asuma was very clear about the audience outside the Death Forest at this moment. Even the 5 Kage were probably talking about this, so he would never allow himself to be dragged into a stalemate by a 10-year-old child like the previous instructor group. He couldn't afford to lose his face like that. Sasuke said to his companions around him, "Hey, what skills do you two have? Use them now. If you don't fight with your lives, you will really die this time." Naruto no longer hesitated, immediately bit his right thumb and prepared to make a hand seal. Swish, suddenly, a figure suddenly attacked without warning and kicked Naruto, who had just made a hand seal. "You..." Naruto was taken aback, but before he could react, he felt a pain in his chest, and then his whole body flew out like a kite without a string and fell hard on the ground. Sasuke on the side barely dodged the attack, quickly made a hand seal, and shouted, "Fire release! Great fireball technique!" Boom! In an instant, a fierce fireball blasted the place where Naruto was just now. Asuma, who kicked Naruto, twitched the corner of his mouth, and his body swayed slightly. Not only did he easily dodge Sasuke's great fireball technique, but he also sneaked behind Sakura, who was a little confused, and knocked out Sakura with a knife hand strike. TSK, as expected of a member of the Akatsuki. Sasuke, who had dodged to the side, spat with a gloomy face. He had already expected that the opponent would be very strong, but after the real fight, he personally experienced the horror of the opponent. Although the opponent only used taijutsu, the fierceness and speed that the opponent showed was not at the level of an ordinary chunin. So when Naruto and Sakura were instantly knocked out by the opponent, although Sasuke was worried, he was not surprised, because even if he had the Sharingan, he could be instantly knocked out by the opponent. At this time, Asuma smiled at Sasuke. "Your speed is not bad." Sasuke did not say anything, but quickly recalled the information he had read about the Akatsuki before, but found that the 4 people in front of him did not match the description of the Akatsuki members collected by the village so far. Are these people the new members of the Akatsuki? But why are they wearing masks? Isn't it only the Akatsuki that likes to wear masks? One by one, doubts surged in Sasuke's mind. Suddenly, Sasuke felt that there was something wrong with the airflow behind him. His heart shivered, and just as he was about to turn around, he felt a sharp pain in his back, and then a strong force poured into his body, and he was kicked out like Naruto just now. Damn it! Sasuke, who was kicked in the air, endured the sharp pain coming from his back, and shot 2 shurikens tied with steel wires, nailing them on a big tree not far away, and then pulled the steel wires. Using the traction force of the steel wires, his whole body flew towards the big tree. But at this moment, A shuriken shot out and cut off the steel wire that was nailed to the tree and leading Sasuke to escape. Bang! Sasuke, who was flying in the air, lost his traction and suddenly fell to the ground, dizzy from the fall. Asuma slowly walked in front of Sasuke and sneered, "Humph, you have a lot of tricks, but unfortunately, they don't work in front of me." Sasuke, who was lying on the ground, looked at the two Asuma in front of him, one near and one far, and suddenly understood that the one who attacked Naruto and Sakura was just a shadow clone, and the one who attacked him from behind was the real one. Sure enough, there is no way to fight. Only one of the four opponents made a move, and he was no match for him. For a moment, Sasuke felt endless frustration. Voila! Just when Sasuke was about to accept his fate, suddenly a figure rushed out of the grass. The reinforcements are here. Sasuke, who was lying on the ground, suddenly looked up, only to find that the person who rushed out of the grass was not the village's reinforcements, but Tooth, who had a blank look on his face. Without a doubt, after hearing the sound of fighting, Tooth mistakenly thought that the two monsters of the same batch, Sasuke and Ningxi, were fighting, so he rushed over recklessly, wanting to take advantage of them. However, he did not expect that everything in front of him was completely different from what he expected. Not only was Sasuke's team all lying on the ground, but even the four Chunin of the instructor team were also lying on the ground, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. What shocked Tooth even more was that there were four guys wearing the Akatsuki Red Cloud uniform standing in the field. Tooth murmured, "Did I get into trouble?" Woof! Akamaru, who was lying on Tooth's head, barked cooperatively. Sasuke, who had just felt a little hopeful, sighed. Asuma laughed and said, "Hey, another one is coming to die." Swoosh! In a flash, Asuma suddenly appeared in front of the bewildered Tooth, and his raised fist was about to swing down. "Do it!" along with a light shout from not far away. Suddenly, a tiger that looked like it was drawn by ink and wash appeared from the side, pouncing towards Asuma. At the same time, along with a series of buzzing noises, parasitic parasites flew towards Red, Gale, and Shien from the other side like a black cloud. Opposite of the parasitic worms, countless kunai, shurikens, and other ninja tools, accompanied by the sound of the wind, shot over like raindrops. Chapter 692. Also, I would like to thank everyone for your support last month. When I think of your support, I, a salted fish writer, feel very warm. I will also do my best this month. Please continue to support me. Naruto's World in the Eyes of Reincarnation. Seeking monthly votes for August. Currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 693. Amidst a series of buzzing noises, parasitic parasites swarmed towards the battlefield like dark clouds, darkening the already dim battlefield even further. At the same time, Tian, who was standing on a tree branch in the distance, waved a scroll that was even bigger than her head, and from it, she shot out all kinds of projectiles towards the battlefield like raindrops. In an instant, the originally clear situation on the battlefield fell into chaos. With regards to this sudden attack, Asuma, Red, Gale, and Shien, who were disguised as members of the Akatsuki, were mentally prepared, but at the same time, they were extremely surprised. Although the four of them are not perception-type ninjas in the true sense, they are still experienced jonin. They are well aware of the fact that there is a group of little brats lurking nearby, so they were prepared for an attack. However, the fact that the little brats are not afraid of the deterrence of the Akatsuki members and are working together is beyond their expectations. Seeing the parasitic worms and the throwing tools coming towards them, Kurinai, Baikes, and Quian, the three jonin of the Umbu naturally wouldn't foolishly resist, so their figures flickered and dodged. However, as soon as Red landed on the ground, she felt her vision darken, and the scenery around her changed. A Jinjutsu? Red, who was slightly surprised, unconsciously raised the corner of her mouth and chuckled. Hee hee, it should be a child from the Kurama family. How dare you use a jinjutsu on me? You're quite brave. She really did not expect that a student would dare to use a jinjutsu on her. Shien, who was not far away, saw that Red was suddenly stunned, and the chakra on her body was unusually chaotic. She immediately understood that someone had used a jinjutsu on Red, so she swept her sharp gaze around. Very quickly, Shien's gaze fell on a patch of grass not far away. The opponent's technique was too immature, and he did not try to hide it. In front of the experienced Shien, she saw through it with a glance, and her position was instantly locked. However, at this moment, Shien found that her body seemed to be bound by something, and she could not move. Sealing technique. Lowering her head to take a look, Shien discovered that at some point in time, many sealing techniques had wrapped around her legs like snakes, restricting her movements. Humph! I've been underestimated. Shien snorted and immediately unleashed chakra, forcibly breaking free from the seals binding her. Then, she walked towards the bush where the other party was hiding. In the bushes, seeing Shien approaching, Ziyuan immediately panicked. Huh? Why did my sealing technique fail? That shouldn't be the case. Yakumo, who was using a powerful illusion to tangle with Red, was sweating profusely. She said weakly, He's already breaking my illusion, I'm afraid I can't hold on much longer. On the side, Sai couldn't care less about his two teammates, Ziyuan and Yakumo, because he was controlling the painted tiger that was activated by the fake super beast painting to pounce on Asma. On Asma's side, seeing Huahu pouncing over, Asma first dodged to the side, dodging Huahu's attack. Then, he turned around and kicked Ya, who was frightened to the point of being absent-minded. Pung pung. But just as Asma's kick was about to land on Ya, another figure appeared from the bushes. She waved her hands that were flashing with blue chakra and forcefully blocked Asma's kick. Soft fist Hyuga Hinata. Seeing the childish little girl in front of Ya, Asma was shocked. He didn't think that the daughter of the Hyuga clan would put herself in danger for her companions. This didn't fit the style of the Hyuga clan in his eyes at all. At this time, Ningxi, who was not far away, shouted, Tian Tian, cover me. Tian Tian, who was on the tree branch, waved the big scroll again and responded, yes. Swoosh. After activating the body flicker technique, Ningxi cut into the battlefield from a strange angle. First, he used a soft fist to force back Asma, who was in front of Hinata, Anya, and then his figure flickered and came to the side of Sasuke, who was lying on the ground, and asked, hey, can you still fight? Ningxi's thinking is very simple. Although there are many students present, only he and Sasuke can really pose a threat to the Akatsuki. So after helping Hinata, Anya, he immediately came to Sasuke's side. Sasuke, who was already discouraged and closed his eyes waiting for death, saw so many companions coming to his rescue. A layer of mist gushed out of his Sharingan. Ningxi, who had activated the Byakugan, glanced at the tearful Sasuke and said coldly, I didn't help to save you. Thank you. Sasuke didn't say much, just thanked him, and then gritted his teeth and stood up while enduring the pain in his back, in the venue outside the Forest of Death. Seeing the three groups of students risking their lives to save Sasuke's group and fighting against Asma and the others who disguised as the Akatsuki, the whole venue cheered. Fuyue, who still had his hands crossed in front of his chest, didn't have his usual serious face, but a rare smile on his face. Sasuke's performance can be said to be perfect, whether it is as a father or as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan. He is very happy. On the other side of the venue, Hayashi and Richa also whispered with a smile on their faces. Hinata and Ningxi didn't choose to abandon their companions even when they knew that there was a strong enemy. But whether this is good or bad, right or wrong, may be debatable, but in the actual combat drill, with so many spectators and the attention of the five Kage, this is obviously an action that brings glory to the Hyuga clan. The Inuzuka clan, the Kurama clan, as well as Tenna's father who runs a ninja shop, and other relatives of the students who participated in the battle were all smiling at this moment, talking and laughing with the people around them. Only the three families of Ino Shikacho, and Ino Shikacho looked a little embarrassed when they saw Shikamaru, Ino, and Shinichi hiding in the tree hole on the monitor. On the high platform, for generations of Kazekage, said sincerely, "I have to say, the ninja education of your village is really impressive." 3 generations of Naruto said with a smile, "Kazekage-sama is overpraising us." 3 generations of Naruto was secretly relieved that the students didn't scatter under the pressure of the Akatsuki members, nor did they betray their companions. 4 generations of Liang, who has been trying to challenge Mai's position as the head of the 5 great shinobi villages, said, "Humph, it's too early to say these things." 3 generations of Tsuchikage echoed, "Yes, although these kids are courageous, courage alone is not enough. We still have to see how they perform next." Inside the main monitoring room, an Umbu member who was responsible for checking the monitors suddenly got up from his seat and pointed at a monitor screen and exclaimed, "Look, there are 2 people here." Hyojin, who was in the main monitoring room, looked towards the source of the sound, and his face suddenly sank as he muttered to himself, "Obsidian, Zetsu, why are they in the Death Forest?" First watch. Chapter 694. The surveillance camera that captured Obsidian and Zetsu's figure was arranged by an Umbu member of the Obsidian tribe. Using the insect control technique of the Obsidian tribe, he placed the surveillance camera in an inconspicuous hive. Because of the chakra of the countless ninja bees in the hive, even Obsidian's Manjikyu Sharingan was unable to detect the surveillance camera in the hive, thus inadvertently revealing their tracks. Staring at the 2 blurred figures in the surveillance camera, Jiraiya frowned. "Damn it, they really targeted our Mai." Tsunade carefully identified the 2 figures and said, "The one wearing the vortex mask should be the Uchiha clansman of the Akatsuki organization who mastered the space-time ninjutsu, right? Is the other one the Akatsuki member who is good at Earth release?" "Yeah." Jiraiya gently nodded. He has seen both Obsidian and Zetsu on the battlefield many times, so he can recognize them at a glance. After seeing the figure of Obsidian in the surveillance camera, Kakashi on the side had a complex expression and was silent. The sudden appearance of the real Akatsuki member is undoubtedly a threat to all the people who are participating in the actual combat drill, especially the 9 Tails Jinchuriki Naruto and the 7 Tails Jinchuriki Lifu. So after confirming the identity of the other party, Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at Hyojin at the same time. As the headmaster of the ninja school, Hyojin is the highest person in charge of this actual combat drill. So even Jiraiya and Tsunade, who are the Sannin of the Mai, can't arbitrarily give orders without Hyojin's approval. As Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at Hyojin, Kakashi, Jishe, Mute, Suzume, Uchiha, Izumi, and other Mai ninjas who are responsible for the medical treatment of the injured also looked at Hyojin. In the face of such a troublesome situation, everyone is waiting for Hyojin's decision. Kuroto, on the other hand, stared at the monitor thoughtfully. Both Obsidian and Black Zetsu are very difficult opponents to deal with. They belong to the most difficult characters to kill in the shinobi world. In the case of the 2 of them being vigilant, it is almost impossible to kill them. At the beginning, when Obsidian was just a fledgling and only had 1 Manjikyu Sharingan, even the 4 generations Naruto couldn't stop him and could only let him go. Black Zetsu is even more troublesome. Hyojin is very sure that Black Zetsu's body must still retain a part of the supreme power of Kekkei Net left to him by Kagaya. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain how Black Zetsu was able to subdue Madara Uchiha in the state of 6 paths. One must know that at that time, when Guy opened the 8th gate of Hashiman Tank, he kicked half of Madara's body, and Madara could recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it was as if nothing happened to him. But Black Zetsu made Madara completely lose the ability to resist with just a sneak attack, which is simply unreasonable. What's more, if Black Zetsu didn't have the power of Kekkei Net left to him by Kagaya, it would be impossible for him to modify the stone tablet left by the Sage of Six Paths. After all, Black Zetsu has neither the Manjikyu Sharingan nor the Rinnegan. Under normal circumstances, let alone modifying the stone tablet left by the Sage of Six Paths, he doesn't even have the qualifications to understand the contents of the stone tablet. Therefore, this can also prove that Black Zetsu's body contains a power that surpasses the power of the Sage of Six Paths. However, this power should not be much left. Perhaps it can only be used once or twice. So Black Zetsu has been dormant for thousands of years, waiting for the best opportunity. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin said, "Both of them are members of the Akatsuki organization who are good at infiltration and reconnaissance. So their appearance is likely to be just for reconnaissance." Jiraiya agreed with Hyojin's analysis. The other party's target may be Naruto, who is participating in the actual combat exercise in the Forest of Death. Tsunade immediately said, "Then we should immediately end the actual combat exercise and protect Naruto." Hyojin shook his head and said lightly, "Before we figure out the specific intentions of the Akatsuki organization, our overreaction may send a bad signal to the Akatsuki organization, letting them perceive that we are not confident enough." Kakashi nodded. "Well, the reason why they sneaked in is probably because they are worried that we will join forces with Amatsukami to deal with them. Once we show weakness and end the actual combat exercise in advance, it may reveal the fact that we have lost contact with Amatsukami, which will lead to a disaster." Tsunade frowned. "But we can't just turn a blind eye to their infiltration, can we?" At this time, Hyojin said calmly, "Well, I'll go test them and see what their purpose is." Jishue quickly said, "Kuroto-san, then I'll go with you." "No, you stay here." After a pause, Hyojin continued, "If the Akatsuki organization really wants to attack the village, you will cooperate with Kakashi to protect the shinobi." "Yes." Jishue immediately responded. Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Neither of them thought that Hyojin would really dare to order the Uchiha clan's Manjikyu like a subordinate in public, and what surprised them even more was the respectful attitude of Jishue towards Hyojin. How can Uchiha clan's Manjikyu be so respectful to a member of the Hyuga clan? For a moment, Jiraiya and Tsunade had this question in their minds at the same time. On the other hand, Yui exclaimed, "Kuroto-san, you want to go alone?" "They are the Akatsuki organization." Jiraiya also asked curiously, "How are you going to test them?" Bang bang. In a low muffled sound, Sasuke and Ningxi's abdomen were hit by a heavy punch at the same time, and they flew out violently. Then like a prawn ball, they curled up on the ground in pain. Asma teased, "Is that all you've got?" Sasuke and Ningxi were in so much pain that they could not even stand up, and they could not respond to Asma's teasing at all. Seeing Sasuke and Ningxi, whom they had placed all their hopes on, being knocked down to the ground without any resistance, all the students present fell into deep despair. Suddenly, just as everyone was in despair, Naruto got up from the ground. After seeing that it was Naruto, the students who had been knocked down to the ground shook their heads. Even geniuses like Sasuke and Ningxi could not resist. So what could Naruto, who was at the bottom of the rankings, do? At this moment, Naruto shouted, "You guys stop." Asma asked, "Are you still not going to escape?" "Escape?" After a pause, Naruto's gaze swept across the instructors and students who had fallen to the ground, and then he shouted angrily, "Are you kidding me? I, Whirlpool Naruto, am going to become Naruto's man." Asma smiled. "If you want to become Naruto, shouldn't you think of a way to survive?" Naruto bit his right thumb again and said to himself, "Brother Do, I'm sorry. In order to save everyone, I have to break my promise with you." After saying that, Naruto quickly formed a seal and shouted, "Psychic art. First update." Because he had Byakugan, he knew the terror of the giant snake in front of him better than anyone else. The chakra inside the giant snake was not only incomparably huge, but also very special, as if it had merged with heaven and earth. In his vision with Byakugan, the giant snake was like a chakra's sun. All the surrounding chakra waves seemed incomparably small in front of this giant snake. In the venue outside the Forest of Death, with the sudden appearance of the giant snake, the venue was in an uproar again. This unforeseen event was completely out of everyone's expectations, causing everyone to be surprised and excited. Uchiha Makoto, who had been worried about her son, asked her husband in surprise, "What happened? Why did such a terrifying spiritual beast appear?" "I'm not too sure either." Fuyue furrowed his eyebrows. Even as the clan leader of the Uchiha clan, he rarely had the chance to interact with such a top-notch spiritual beast. This was because most of these spiritual beasts belonged to sacred grounds like Mount Miyaboku, Ryuchi Cave, and Shika Forest. One needed some luck to come into contact with them. At this moment, Itachi was also a little worried because the scene before him was obviously not part of the plan that Jishue had told him. On the stage, the moment the giant snake appeared, the five shadows stood up from their seats in shock. The 4 generations of Kazekage, who was pointing at the monitor, was about to say something when he was about to say it, but he forcefully swallowed it back down. He vaguely remembered that a few decades ago, when the 3 generations of Kazekage were young, they seemed to have signed a spiritual contract with a giant red snake. However, the contract was canceled for some unknown reason. After that, the 3 generations of Kazekage successfully cultivated magnetic release and was chosen as the Kazekage by the village. Since then, there were fewer opportunities for them to make a move, and gradually, no one mentioned this matter anymore. The 3 generations of Tsuka laughed and said, "Hey, this kid with 9 tails human Jinchuriki is really not simple." Although the spiritual contract could be signed as long as both parties agreed, the more powerful the spiritual beast, the more difficult it was to communicate with it. For a top-notch spiritual beast like the giant snake in the monitor, without chakra amount of jonin, it would be very difficult to communicate with it. Therefore, just by completing this spiritual contract, the 3 generations of Tsukuha had a higher opinion of Naruto. Quickly inform Hyojin to stop the actual combat exercise." Different from the other Kage who were either surprised or appreciative, the 3 generations of Naruto was really panicking this time. No one had expected that Naruto would be able to summon out such a powerful psychic beast.